So I've got Councillor Liz Colley. Any other? Councillor Pearson.
Apologies from Derek Bassman.
Right. Before I take the minutes of the meeting, there is one or two things I need to say. Please note that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded. If you wish to record the meeting yourself, then please give due regard to the Council's protocol on audiovisual recording and photography in public meetings. I would also say that if anyone does not wish to be recorded, please will they indicate so, and I would request that all recording stops at that point, just while they're speaking. I have no notification of anyone wishing so. It's my intention this morning to switch the agenda slightly from that published, and item 7 will now be the MP, followed by the Mayor of York and North Yorkshire. So he was originally item 6, so I'm switching 6 and 7 around. It's also my intention to take the public questions with regard to Whitby Cliff Lift at that item, which is item 8. And I will also be asking Councillor Trumper to present his petition at that time before we have the presentation from officers. The reason for that is that the decision on that subject will colour what happens with the petition. And I don't want to have the same debate twice. And as you've seen the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of June, do we have any alterations or notes on that? And if not, can someone propose and second? John Ritchie, Philip Trumper. Declarations of interest. Have any members any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda?
Sorry, I just do I have to declare that it's my petition?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I take it though that you are predisposed but not predetermined. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Image is signed. Bear with me a second because I'm told that I have to initial every page of the minutes now. Image is signed. Protocol on audiovisual recording and photography in public meetings. Mammoth task.
Thank you.
my updates. That's it. We have an update from Joe Ireland in respect to the Scarborough Athletic Football Club, and which she says, we continue to work with Wilmot Dixon and a range of specialists in relation to the preferred technical option. You may be aware that we've recently had some additional boreholes and soil samples taken, and we are now working on analysing the results of these and finalising the solution and the programme. For this, we should be able to give more information about the details early next month. Yorkshire Water are also currently undertaking works to clear identified blockages in their section of the pipework. This is a complex process, but I can reassure you that the assurances previously given about the timescale remain. We are all working to ensure the football can resume on the pitch as quickly as possible, and we will update you further. That's Joe's update in relation to ongoing matters there. I have no other chairman's verbal report. We then move to public participation. I have 6 public questions which have been received, and I've said 4 questions and statements were concerning Whitby Cliff Lift, and these will be dealt with at
Thank you, everyone. The question I'd like to raise today is that I'm concerned that North Yorkshire Council has lost focus on dealing with Scarborough's long-term empty homes problem, and it is affecting where I live. My question is, can the council tell us how many empty properties there are in our area with the latest information? The latest publicly easily searchable information is 5 years old. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. And thank you for contacting us about the empty homes in Scarborough and the Whitby area. Empty homes complaints are being dealt with on a reactive basis, as I'm sure you're aware. We are still in the process of aligning ways of working across the previous boroughs, districts, and to provide a consistent approach across North Yorkshire. We've begun a piece of work to establish the current landscape of empty properties across North Yorkshire and looking at how they can be dealt with historically in each area, how they were dealt with historically in each area. This piece of work will help us to establish how we work consistently across the county moving forward. As part of this, we're looking into how many empty homes there are across the county. Once this piece of work has been concluded, we will be able to update you. We anticipate that this will take around 6 months. As part of this, we will establish what information we're able to make publicly available. You have a right to a supplementary if you want one, based on the answer.
Thank you. Yes, I have got one. Councils that are bringing their empty homes back into use have highlighted the roles of 2 or 3 empty homes officers. Could I ask what plans North Yorkshire Council may have to introduce this vital role?
I think it's probably true to say that the corporate director is currently looking at it anyway. I know they're looking at empty homes we've inherited. I think it's 3 council house accounts, which are being currently amalgamated. There's a lot of work being done. There's a lot of a backlog in some areas on repairs, etc. So that going forward is principally the aim, and empty homes are, we're trying to get them back into operation as quickly as possible. Next question is from Viv Wright, and St John is going to read that.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. So this is from Viv Wright. I write on behalf of many Whitby residents. May I first remind councillors of the stated purpose of area committees: to improve the quality of life for people in their area by acting as a critical friend to policymakers and decision makers, enabling the voice and concerns of the public to be heard and driving improvements in public services. We want the area committee to adhere to this purpose by arranging meetings in Whitby on a regular basis, or at least when the agenda includes an item regarding an issue in Whitby. It is not acceptable to shelve it away in the work programme file where it can be conveniently ignored. We do not accept the reasons stated in the minutes. Residents have a democratic right to be able to attend such important meetings in their own town. This is the only time they are able to voice concerns or approval of decisions direct to councillors without having to travel to Scarborough. There are venues which have suitable disabled access and parking, although we advocate against using those which are sited in busy pay and display car parks, such as the leisure centre or in the town centre. Portable loop systems are available, as are microphone systems, and now that the internet service has been upgraded, your IT technicians must be able to advise you on how this live streaming can be achieved. Commercial businesses can live stream events. Why can't North Yorkshire Council? If the committee is unable to live stream, then so be it. They must still hold regular meetings in the town. We will not be held to ransom because of a technical issue, which in this technical age should easily be solved. And this is the reply. This issue has now been considered by the leadership of the council and by the chair, vice chair of this committee and group spokespersons at the recent mid-cycle briefing of the committee. And the agreed proposal as a way forward is to hold one meeting of the area committee per year at Whitby Pavilion. For technical reasons, the meeting will not be live streamed, nor will remote attendance be possible. However, an audio recording will be later uploaded to the council website. The date scheduled for the area committee in Whitby is Friday, the 20th of March next year. However, the Whitby Pavilion is not available on that date. It is therefore proposed, subject to the agreement of the area committee, to hold the meeting a few days later on Tuesday, 24th of March 2026, with the same start time of 10 a.m.
To say you can't do Tuesday, it's a cabinet day.
So Councillor Phillips is saying that Tuesdays are out of the question. Right. Okay. Well, in that case, we will, if the committee permits, I will seek an alternative date around that period at the Whitby Pavilion.
Could I remind members and the chair that the decision was that we alternated meetings between Scarborough and Whitby in order to meet the issues that have been raised by Viv Wright and others. One of the arguments that is used against using Whitby as a venue is the lack of access to IT, which would allow both recording and publication of the live streaming, but also so that officers can be present online to answer and respond to questions. So I'm a little bit bemused by the first question being answered by the chair, which I have no problem with the chair expressing a view on, but that is not the officer's view, as far as I'm aware, answering a supplementary question on housing.
You've made your point. I don't propose to have a debate on this subject. This is a matter of a public question. I do agree, though, with Councillor Swanwick that we did say alternate dates. I asked St John to read the answer just because he was reading the question at the same time, nothing more than that. As we're all aware, there is a major problem trying to live stream from Whitby at the moment. And until such time as that's sorted, it will be an audio recording uploaded to the council website. But I agree with you that it should actually be alternate meetings, as used to happen before we live streamed. Live streaming has caused a problem right the way down the line. Thank you.
I'm making that a proposal from this committee that having...
I'm making it as a correction to what St John said. It should be live streamed.
Yeah.
Sorry, it should be alternate.
Absolutely. I
It's
think
purely a correction. It's not a proposal.
yes, I'll propose it.
Sorry, Chair.
David has proposed that it should be alternate, and
Even though they can't be live streamed.
yes,
Yeah, okay.
and Roberta seconded it. No, I'm not having any more debate on it. What is the point of order?
The fact that it was already been proposed and seconded in a previous meeting and we voted on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And really, we should be adhering to that motion, that resolution.
Okay.
That's the proposal now.
Yeah.
Alternate meetings.
Absolutely. The next item.
Also, sorry, so
No,
so no one's going to vote on the proposal.
no,
All right.
it went through at the last meeting.
That's fine.
We're correcting it. Next item on the agenda is I propose to switch things around slightly, and the next item is to welcome our MP, Alison Hume, to the meeting and ask you to take over and
Thank
have
you.
your say, Alison.
Thank you very much, Chair, and it's wonderful to be here again. It's 6 months since I was invited to speak at the Scarborough and Whitby Area Committee meeting. I think the one I wasn't allowed to come to one. There was a by-election, so I'd like to congratulate Councillor Seston. I look forward to working collaboratively with you. A lot has happened in the last 6 months, so I'm not proposing to give a report about all of that. I'll just focus on a few issues, if that's okay, and then take some questions. So the first thing to say is that my constituency office is now fully open on 11 Northway. It's a fully accessible building, and we are welcoming in constituents on a regular basis, and including advice surgeries. The siting of the office opposite the Stephen Joseph Theatre and the railway station has been very well received by constituents, and I'm now pleased to say that I'm fully staffed. Over the last 6 months, we've opened 4,000 cases and closed 5,300. Some of those cases will be very simple email inquiries. Others will be very complicated pieces of casework that take months to resolve, as I'm sure councillors will know from your own experience, but you can see from the workload, it's a considerable workload, and for an MP with 4 staff, it keeps us very busy. So in the last 6 months, I've held 8 advice surgeries in Scarborough, Whitby and the villages. As I mentioned last time, it was my pledge to constituents to go and see them where they live. So the last one was held in Staithes, and that was successful. I've also held 3 Ask Alison public meetings. This is an opportunity for constituents to come and talk to me and raise their concerns on particular issues. And I've had support from Councillor Swires and Councillor Colling at my Ask Alison on the new housing proposed for Caton. I'm very grateful for councillors' expertise and support on that. I've also held a public meeting on, very timely, on heather burning, which I'll come on to when I mention the fire. And I've also held one on the fracking proposals of Europa Oil and Gas in Burnaston. So that's a sort of brief overview of my work in the constituency. The first of the 3 issues I'd like to talk about is the Langdale fire, as it has a government angle to it. As you know, we're now into about our 6th week of the fire, which is still burning. As the MP for Scarborough and Whitby, and someone who is quite visible on social media, when the fire started to become a public concern, my office received a lot of calls from people affected by smoke, businesses affected, farmers who could see the flames coming and were worried. And so it was my first experience of being a public service servant when the public actually turned to me and asked for help. And I was very grateful for support of councillors and other colleagues during those first few days until other communications took over. I'd just like to mention that I did press for a dedicated phone line for constituents to ring, but I was unsuccessful in getting that set up. I do believe that was an oversight, and I think that it's a live incident, but in the lessons learnt, I do think that the local resilience forum should look at always providing a phone line for people to ring in what was an emergency. I was also concerned on the public health line about the amount of smoke and ash that was falling on the villages particularly, and I raised that with Richard Flinton and received assurances that closing doors and windows was sufficient. It will be interesting to see again in the wash-up what lessons are learned from that, because as I understand, the particulates which come off which are part of the burning are actually dangerous. So I think that we need to look at public health. And the third thing I'd like to say, and this is again predating what lessons learnt in the inquiry, but having gone up to the site on day 9 and seen how close the fire got to RAF Farlingdales, I'm going to be asking the government whether national resilience should be triggered when a critical military facility is within scope of the fire. I saw myself the line that the firefighters fought to keep the fire from jumping the track and getting onto the Farlingdales land where the heather was waist high. So that's my own opinion, and I want to say that for the record. That's something I'm doing in government. I would like to place on record my sincere thanks to the farmers, the water tanker drivers, the landowners, the gamekeepers and the volunteers who worked together to incredibly contain this fire, which was 20 square kilometres, at one point 10 miles. And there's been no loss of life and no loss of property. It came very close to a caravan park, and I think it was incredible. But the firefighters will be the first to acknowledge that they couldn't have done what they did without the farmers. So going ahead, I've already met with the NFU president and farmers in Scarborough. I'm also going to be meeting with NFU Whitby and farmers to thank them and also to ask about what support they need. There's an argument for reimbursement for fuel for them. There's been a local GoFundMe page opened for raised about £75,000. That's absolutely amazing. But what can the emergency funding that was granted by the government do for farmers? So I think with immaculate timing, the government have just announced restrictions on heather burning, which will mean that heather that is over 30 centimetres can't be burnt as opposed to 40 centimetres. And I'm going to be looking at the proposals very carefully and talking to moorland management about that. It's good news for my constituents in the valley who, in Esk Valley, who have the smoke descending on them, but there's also an argument around the management of heather moors, and I'm going to be looking into that. The second issue I'd like to raise is the application by Europa Oil and Gas to frack at Burniston. I've had two public meetings on that, and I'm going to be holding another one on the 25th of October. I'll be inviting all of you to come to that. And there is a huge public outcry. There's been 1,500 objections. I realise that this is going before the planning committee, but just from a government point of view, the reason that it's not part of the moratorium, prop and squeeze, is that it is an industry standard used by the oil industry, and therefore it's not contained in the fracking moratorium. I'm pressing the government to include it in the ban and working very hard to do that. And at Labour conference, I will be holding a round table on that. I'm very keen that my constituents get their democratic voice heard, and that I again state my objection to small-scale fracking 1 kilometre from our national park. The third item on the agenda I'd just like to raise for me before I take questions is that I'm really pleased to say that there has been a good result after my concerted campaign in government to get cellular data smart hubs rolled out, and this has been a big issue, particularly in Whitby and the villages, as well as in Scarborough. And the licenses have been changed now, so suppliers can put in cellular data hubs, and 4G is being rolled out in the north. And I'm really pleased to report that that's going to make a material difference and mean that constituents can take advantage of the variable rates. So those are the three things I wanted to touch on. There are many, many other things that I've been working on, but I'm really keen to take questions from councillors, if that's okay, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Yes, if any members would like to ask a question, please indicate in a second. Alison has to be away by 10:45, so we have 15 minutes. David Jeffels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions for Alison. The first thing, I think you did touch on it slightly, about the fuel that farmers have been using to fight the fire. My information is that some of them have been hauled over the coals for using red diesel, which I believe, strictly speaking, can only be used for agricultural purposes, and they now find themselves in difficulties with HMRC on that one. You may not be able to answer that today, but if you could take it on board. And just not a frivolous question, but you've now been our MP for just over a year. And I wonder whether you have any overall thoughts as to what this constituency would benefit from with your involvement and a cross-party group of councillors that we have here, how we can probably help some of the problems that you may have encountered.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that Chancellor Rachel hasn't given you the checkbook today to come here.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffels, for your question. You raised a very good point about the red diesel, and I'll certainly take that away in my conversations. Obviously, the response to the fire has been run by the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service and the local resilience forum, of which North Yorkshire Council is the leading body. I have nothing at all to do with it, but I do want to advocate on behalf of my constituent farmers, and I will take that away. So thank you for that. On what I think the area needs after being the MP for a year, I would say we've probably got three areas that we could all work together on. I mean, one is the investment into the constituency. We need that. And I was delighted to be at the opening of Siemens Electric recently. It's a great example of how jobs will be created going forward. The second challenge, I think, is transport, and I've been quite vocal on this, and I know that our mayor is working on it. Without good transport links, and I'm not just talking trains, I'm talking buses in the rural areas, our area will be held back. And opportunities for young people, I think, is crucial. Is the other area that we should all be concentrating on. So those are the three areas: investment, transport, and opportunities. And I really do look forward to working with you all as we make a better future for our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Seston.
You referenced investment there in the area needs. The government's long-term plan for neighbourhoods, the £20 million over 10 years. You said in March that you were thrilled and delighted that the money was allocated, and that it stands in contrast to the Conservatives' unfunded and failed approach. Yet when the scheme was first announced by Rishi Sunak in October 2023, you described it as barely more than shiny headlines, chaos and delays, and quite frankly insulting to think it makes up for 13 years of neglect. I'm wondering which specific part of the rebranding made a difference for you?
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Seston. That's a great question. I'm really looking forward to the meeting I've got coming up on the Scarborough Neighbourhood Board. We've appointed a new chair. He samples, and we've got a fantastic board made up of individuals who are embedded in Scarborough and the community. And the difference is that the money, the 20 million over 10 years, will be invested into the priorities that local people bring forward. The previous town deal was quite restricted, although there have been some fantastic results. It was quite restricted in what the money could be spent on. So the main difference is the neighbourhood plan is part of the government strategy going forward. It's not going to be a case that the money will be withdrawn. That money is there, and that is coming, and it will be spent on projects which are a priority for the people of Scarborough, and that's the main difference between this iteration and the previous one. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison. Thank you for your report, and also for the work that you're doing in solidarity with the community against fracking applications. Many residents in Scarborough and Whitby may be concerned about the growing pressures on public assets, particularly community green spaces like allotments. With councils facing extreme financial strain and increased flexibility now allowed in selling assets to fund services, how will you ensure that protections for statutory allotments and other valued local spaces are not quietly eroded? In other words, will you push for stronger safeguards so that these community assets can't be sold off under financial pressure without local consent or full public transparency? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I thought you were going to ask about the the stroke service at Scarborough Hospital there, which obviously is an ongoing thing. Yes, it's really. I think it's really important. The assets are protected in terms of green spaces particularly, and I know that this is something that the council's looking into. It's been drawn to my attention by several constituents that the lack of green spaces in Scarborough and Whitby is quite considerable, and with the plans around Scalby School and various other iterations, there is a big concern that public space is going to be eroded, and I think planning is not something that MPs get involved in, but at a government level, I will always seek to protect public spaces from being sold without constituents having a chance to speak on it.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. I too was able to attend the opening of the Schneider Electric new green energy plant over at Eastfield. As I know that some people won't understand this, but the estate does actually come under SEMA division. So it was very good to be there. Can you work with our mayor to ensure that we get the A64 sorted out, get it dualled? Because I know there is maybe not as supportive as we could have hoped for in the last year or so. So please work with your esteemed colleague. And also, can you get involved in planning? Can you decide, go into your lovely colleagues at the Department of Local Government, etc., and try and persuade them that North Yorkshire does not need to be covered in houses, and that they need to actually take a brownfield site approach, because I know that a lot of us who live outside of the town area, we're bearing the brunt of all this development, and it is changing the face of our villages, and those people deserve the support of our MP just as much as the people in the town who are maybe not going to be as affected, because we can't have planning and new houses without infrastructure. So please take that message back, and I'd love to hear how you get on with Angela Rayner's replacement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips, and can I just thank you for your support at the recent roundtable on domestic abuse and looking at how we have dispersed accommodation, possibly a refuge in the constituency. This roundtable was held and run by the Deputy Mayor Joe Coles, attended by Councillor Phillips as well, and the Combined Authority. And it's a really good example of how everybody's working together on a particular policy issue. On your point about the A64, oh my goodness me, many political careers have died, lived and died on that promise, including my predecessor, I believe, was the Minister for Transport at one point. 20 years, didn't manage to get it dualled. It is on I did check, it is on the sub-priority list of the roads. And of course, we would all like to see it happen. I think it's an issue of cost. It's so prohibitively expensive. But I did check on where it is on the list, and I will keep pushing. On planning, I completely agree with you about the pressures on housing. I did ask the local growth minister what steps he's taking to develop a coastal strategy to ensure that new developments, particularly like the one proposed for Caton, are delivered alongside infrastructure, because this is what constituents say to me again and again: there is no point building houses if there isn't the doctor to go with it, the school, the road. In Caton, for example, the sewage system isn't even up to scratch for what we have at the moment, let alone new developments. I've spoken to Yorkshire Water about that. I've got a meeting with Persimmon Homes. I'm acutely aware of this and completely on the side of constituents and hear what you say. And on the planning issue, the Labour government's stated aim is to build 1.5 million new homes, and we've already got a new accelerator programme in our constituency. I understand the concerns, but we also need houses for people to live in, and I know that Councillor Swanwick will probably want me to say this, but I am still working on the Airbnb short-term lets issue, because in my view far too many family homes are being used for short-term lets, and they should be released for use by the local community. And so my argument to government is, yes, build some new homes, but release existing existing new homes back. Sorry. Excuse me. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Phillips.
I have 3 more questions, and I'm conscious that Alison's actually got to be away in about 3 minutes. So could I ask you to be brief? Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. Alison, like yourself, the Langdale Moor fire was totally in your area, obviously, and it was in my area completely. And I did think in the first few days of it, didn't get the response we wanted from people, phone calls. I was getting a lot of phone calls, a tremendous lot, but I couldn't give them much answer because there was no information coming out. But that did change after we did get onto the authorities. But I would like to say that the parish councils, and I've been to all of them, which were in that area, have total admiration for the way the fire was fought and was looked after. And you ought to remember that some of these people in that area on a night, it looked very, they said it looked very frightening. It was very red, and they they were very worried. I do feel that those people should have had a dedicated telephone line, so that would be a priority if it happens again. We've got to remember the last fire was in 1971, so it's going back a long time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I couldn't agree more. It was an incredible effort from everybody involved, and just a particular thank you to the on-call firefighters. I know I spoke to a firefighter based at Live Station. They'd been called 29 times, and these people all have other jobs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd just like to come back on one. Also, they did praise highways, because highways were actually stopping the roads, closing them, and how friendly they said the officers were, or the staff was, in turning people back. And remembering that if they're having to go to Scarborough, it was another hour on their trip. So I'd like to thank the highways for their hard work.
Thank you. I associate myself with that.
Councillor Trumper.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, Alison. Do you agree that the combined authority should have a dedicated officer for the coast?
Thank you, Councillor Trumper. I absolutely and completely agree that we need a dedicated officer. We need a director of place for the coast, and I think that the Langdale fire has really highlighted the need for that. Thank you for that question.
I'm conscious that I've missed Councillor Jefferson. Can you manage another 2 quick questions?
Of course I can, for Councillor Jefferson.
Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you very much, Alison. I did email you, but I think you've been so busy with the fire, which I fully understand. You'll probably be aware that I called in an item from the executive to do with Scarborough West Pier, because I was concerned that we were only going to do a repair of the steel sheet piling, which would only give us a 10-year longevity of the harbour. I've discussed this further with the director, because I'm very concerned, because 10 years is not a long period in order for us to fulfil the harbour. Our heritage, we've got a further item today on the heritage at Whitby, and I will think about that as I would think about my own town as well. And I think we had money when we passed the reserves over, and I think to have gone far and to replace this steel sheet piling would have given us 50 years. And I'm concerned government funding is involved here.
We are going to build a new building, a bait shed, which will add more weight onto the pier. And if we had replaced the steel sheet piling, we would have had 50 years guaranteed. And I'm concerned that the future and the wishes of the users of the harbour are not going to be fulfilled by the fact that we've only got a 10-year life. But I will speak to you later, Alison. I'm sorry. I'd say I did email you. I will email you again. But I'm just concerned about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Just to be clear, you're concerned about the building on West Pier?
No, I'm concerned that the fact that we are only repairing the steel sheet piling, which not only takes care of the mooring of the vessels and the landing of the catch, but also it is the sustainability and the weight loading of the harbour itself. And we are going forward, adding extra weight to that pier. But the actual 10-year life of repair, to me, is not good enough. And we should have gone for a 50-year, which would have been 4 to 5 million. You've got to think to the future here. Our mayor is here. He's already given money towards the hoist. I'm concerned that we're spending 11.5 million on a pier, which is a very important asset, a heritage, as we further are going to discuss in our agenda today. And I'm concerned that we should not just lightly look at it. I've had assurances of the director that if it doesn't work, yes, we'll have to put it right. But it's a bit short-sighted to me. We should be looking at this, and it's spoiling the ship for a hape of the tar. And that pier holds an awful lot of weight and is going to hold more weight if we continue. And we're pressing for wind farms. You're on about the young people and furthering their education. We've got education now at the UTC in marine engineering. We want a pier that's going to last long enough to sustain all this. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. I'm not across the details of the as you are, so clearly are, but I thank you for advocating on behalf of your constituents and the future of the pier, which, as you say, is so important for the economic and well-being future of Scarborough. Can I make time to meet with you outside this meeting to discuss it? Thank you.
The final question goes to Councillor Swanwick.
My question will be brief, Chair, which will help you with your management of the agenda. It's already been preempted to some extent by our MP, who I must thank for her report and for the work she does for the constituency. And the question is on the implementation of the proposals that were put out to consultation under the previous government in 2023 for the implementation of change of use classes for a creation of a new use class for holiday lets, of use class C5. My understanding is that that requires only secondary legislation, the use of statutory instruments, but yet I've been asking MPs at this session, our area committee, since the end of that consultation, at what point is this going to happen? And I'm sorry to say that even with the new government in place, we're still not getting an answer. And yet the situation, certainly in Whitby and maybe even Scarborough as well, is that houses are being turned over to short-term lets still at a rapid rate, depriving the opportunity for people to take up permanent residence in the area.
Thank you, Councillor Swanwick. You are nothing if not reliable with your questioning. I can only say what I've said before, which is that the government are committed to moving forward on this. They have, I have lobbied ministers and I'll be lobbying the new ministers. I do this regularly. As you know, I'm a co-signatory on Rachel Maskell's short-term Let's bill, which hopefully will come through and have time in the House in the next year. The issue with the short-term Let's is critical. I raise it constantly. I've called for the minister to the government to bring forward registration of short-term lets and the change of use to avoid our rural areas being overwhelmed so that employers have somewhere to live and businesses can employ enough people. And I've called for that in the Westminster Hall debate and on the floor of the House, and I will continue to press this issue. It is there, it is on the list, but it's been, there's other legislation that's come before it. But I will be tireless in this, Councillor Swanwick. You have my word on that.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you for taking the time and also the extra time just to answer the odd couple of questions later on.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I look forward to attending the next meeting. But if I can make a plea for the one in March, can it be on a Friday? Thank you.
And now welcome David Scaith, who's the Mayor of York and North Yorkshire. We've allocated an hour to this period. David, you've had some pre-prepared questions, I know that. Do you want to take those first and then see if there's anything else members want to add?
If I may, Chair, we've just got a bit of an overview of kind of what we've been up to, which I think might be quite relevant for everyone in the room as well, just to make sure that we have been doing some work over the last 15 months. And then I've kind of condensated those questions down into, because there's kind of a lot in a very similar action. So we sort of brought those all together, if I may, as well. So just find where we are. That's all right. So thank you, everyone, for having me here today. Much appreciated. So I just wanted to, obviously we've touched on the fire already, so I just wanted to put out my support as well, and thanks to the amazing work that's been done by our firefighters, on-call firefighters as well, the landowners, the farmers in the area as well, and all partner organisations. Obviously, the SIS situation is ongoing. But once we have gone into the recovery process, Joe Coles and myself will be holding the Fire and Rescue Service to account to make sure all the processes were followed as they should have been. As you'll be aware, we, as the Combined Authority, are not part of the Local Resilience Forum, which is probably a bit of an oversight from government from when Combined Authorities have been set up. We're not unusual in that place. It's the same across the country. So that's something that we'll be feeding out as well, is kind of what Combined Authorities and mayors' roles play at the time when we have an incident like this. But we'll be very much, when we go into that recovery phase, we'll be working with North Yorkshire Council, the Fire and Rescue Service and others to make sure that any learnings we can take from are implemented. As I say, I'm honoured to be the first mayor of this region. It obviously is an incredibly diverse, mixed region, the first heavily rural and coastal area. So we're kind of really trailing how we deliver devolution in a non-core city, which is kind of where they've come from previously. But we have an opportunity to really showcase how we can deliver the opportunities and investments that places like Scarborough, Whitby and others along our coastline need. It's obviously a great situation where we get to meet with all the other mayors and the other regions and nations across the country as well. We've been able to also create strong links within the wider piece of Yorkshire with South and West Yorkshire mayors. We've been able to sign the White Rose Agreement, which is a big focus on that, is how we prove transport and get that rail investment into our region. We've seen the great work that's happened over the Northwest with Mayor Burnham and Mayor Steve Rotherham over in Liverpool, and that joined up approach, particularly on working on transport, has made they've seen some great investments. So we've basically looked to work on the same areas as well with Oliver and Tracy. My priority really for the entire region is to really make sure we're creating healthy and thriving communities and supporting people in areas to be resilient and ensuring they're connected to the opportunities, particularly focus on living in warm, affordable homes and where people have those connections to the place that they live. These priorities are really behind everything that I'm trying to do as a mayor. My background, obviously, as you'll be aware, isn't heavily in politics. I come from a small business owner, but I'm very passionate about how we drive that investment into our local communities and particularly into our high streets, towns and cities right across the region. As a region with the Combined Authority, we've unlocked £540 million over the next 30 years through the Mayoral Investment Fund. Some of those funds that we've already created in this first 15 months are the High Street Fund, which is a £10 million fund. Some of those projects have gone into Scarborough already, and working with the Steve and Joseph Theatre and local shop owners to drive that investment. We are making big progress on becoming the first carbon negative region in England by 2040, something that we feel that we've got a very unique opportunity to do in the region. We've put a huge amount of investment in innovation into supporting our FE colleges, which we are very blessed. We have a very high quality of colleges and training providers right across the region. And we're also, with our innovation fund, we are helping businesses to grow and export and start up. One of those elements which we've been able to really drive some investment is particularly the export funding, which we freed up £200,000 last year, which developed £15 million worth of sales for businesses across York and North Yorkshire. So that fund this year has been tripled to 630,000. So we're hoping for some great opportunities there for businesses across the region. We're also working with government to attract further investment on top of that initial 540 million. So we initially got a £10 million inactive trailblazer. We've actually received a further £10 million. That's £20 million now. The second round of that will be coming live from September. Oh, now actually September. And we've also been granted a rural bus franchising pilot from government as well, which is again a great opportunity to really develop how particularly the ownership of buses and the plans around buses are delivered in a region like York and North Yorkshire, as opposed to a core city region, which we've seen before. Some of the investments that we've seen into this part of the region was one of the plans we developed very early on was a £1.3 million community building fund, and we've supported, I think it's 4 projects across this area committee. We've also had 5 projects received from this region for the Net Zero Fund. And one of those was to support solar panels in Eastfield on the church there. We've recently just become the 9th strategic. We've recently signed the 9th strategic place partnership with Homes England, which means we have opportunity to really fast track and unlock some of those really challenging housing sites and developments we have across York and North Yorkshire. We've got something like 28,000 homes sat that have planning permission that just aren't moving. So we've got opportunity now with having that strategic place partnership with Homes England to actually get those moving. We became the first combined authority to adopt a 10-year growth plan. So we were the first area to be able to present that to government and really highlighting those local strengths and opportunities that we have and how we can drive growth into the sectors and really have those competitive advantages in our region. We've also created the new police, fire, crime and fire and rescue plans. And a big priority of that was, along with Joe Coles, is prioritising neighbourhood policing, tackling violence against women and girls, serious violence and increasing early intervention and prevention. So really drive investment in those early stages, which we've already doubled the investment into early intervention and prevention work. We've also received and almost £40 million. We actually think it's probably more like 50 now into skills across the region. So as you'll be aware, I'm responsible for the adult skills funding. That's the most money that's ever gone into skills in our region. And a big focus on that is aligning, making sure that the next generation of people coming through and opportunity to reskill and retrain people, that those skills are aligned with what industries are asking us. We've had many conversations with businesses right across the region that we do create a very high skilled young person, but not necessarily the skills aligned to the industries that we have in the region. So we have an opportunity to really link those together. Obviously, I've touched on the rural bus franchising pilot, which we are developing as we speak. And we're also creating now, as I speak again, the first local transport plan for the entire of York and North Yorkshire, which is, as you can imagine, quite a large challenge because of the geographical nature of the region, but a huge opportunity. I'm also proud we've been able to negotiate deals with both Northern Trains and East Yorkshire buses to introduce reduced fares for the Scarborough athletic fans. I think since we've done that, I don't think they've lost a game since they've been playing at the new ground, which is great to see. And we continue to make progress on the 2 trains per hour between York and Scarborough, which we had a very productive meeting on that quite recently, and really pressing hard on how much of a priority that is for our region. The questions, if I may, Chair, if I may carry on, we've kind of brought these into sort of 5 or 6, but I'm happy to take more afterwards if I may. So one there was the York to rail train connectivity. As we say, we're building a really strong case for the transformative change that would make along that corridor. So it's not just necessarily connecting York to Scarborough, but it's the opportunity that does for places like Moulton along that route as well. So it's incredibly important, and the potential development opportunities around SEMA and then obviously into the Scarborough area as well. Increased frequency along that York and Scarborough corridor study, which we're developing now, and we're having really good, strong engagement with government. And a major part of that route to get that delivered was getting the funding for Haxby train station, which we got only a few weeks or so ago. We're incredibly positive about the opportunity around this and the improvement that it will make, and to link in the coast, because obviously it's an absolute priority. And we say we're regularly conversations with the Secretary of State, TP, and the Transport and North Board as well to really press this case. It was actually on the Transport for the North meeting last week. Regeneration jobs and commercial viability was kind of another sort of one that sort of all came in together. Scarborough Town Centre particularly has great potential, particularly in improving the experience for visitors and creating more jobs for local residents. We're exploring options to support the development of the Brunswick Centre, and as part of the wider redevelopment in Scarborough Town Centre and the train station area as well. And my officers are working closely with North Yorkshire Council and the Neighbourhoods Board to access the best options around how we can support those projects. In terms of commercial development viability, it's difficult, but it's not impossible to change market factors. But we're absolutely determined that making Scarborough more attractive to investors, improving connectivity will certainly support that. And obviously seeing investments such as Schneider, we're working with Schneider ongoing to see how we can really use that as a sort of almost a flagship and a way to really sort of promote the area and to really make more of that investment of that nearly £50 million that came into the region quite recently. Tourism was kind of another rough question around. We've got both teams working in York and North Yorkshire leading on tourism, and we're keen on not just duplicating what's gone on, but how we can really add that extra value. Working with Visit North Yorkshire team, we have great ambitions and around how we can really increase the opportunity around tourism. Our LVEP, which is the Local Visitor Enterprise Partnership, I believe it all stands for. First meeting of that is next week, and that's really going to how we can set a plan to really drive that investment and opportunities around tourism, because it is such a major part of our economy. Scarborough Harbour, which was a question that was raised to the MP there as well. We've provided funding for the boat hoist. The initial ask, I think, was 700,000. We then increased it by another 250,000 to almost £1 million. As you've quite rightly stated, there is quite a bit of work that needs done on the underpinning and the strength of the harbour. A question was raised about if we could have maybe a specialist person working on the coast in the CA, someone who actually does have a lot of expertise on the coast, does work in my CA, and a part of that was actually raised about what's the structural integrity of the harbour and is it going to be set up? So it has been raised from our side of it, but it is very much a North Yorkshire Council plan, but we have provided that initial funding, and we are ongoing working with them as to see how that plan can move forward. But as you say, there's a lot of complexities, and that underpinning of it is going to be quite costly, should we say. Another one there was around housing and Homes England investment into Eastfield. We've established a partnership now with Homes England, which will be assessing barriers to, house building right across the region. We've got circa 28,000 homes that have planning but haven't been built, and we've got 10,500 people on a housing waiting list. How you can work in housing and not be horrified at the fact that there are 10,000 people waiting on a housing waiting list is beyond me. So we are pressing forward to make sure we're building the homes that our region needs, but also support our communities. I also have big concerns around second homes, holiday lets and such, and obviously supporting Rachel Maskell MP on her drive to bring in stronger legislation around second homes and holiday lets, because it is a sort of thing that will basically kill off a lot of our communities with that as well, unfortunately. Valley Rail was another question that came through. An additional morning train will operate from December 2025, and my officers and my head of rail actually does live in Scarborough, so he's incredibly passionate about this, have supported the work to enable this, and will continue to work with the Community Rail Partnership and Northern Trains to promote the service. And the final one that came through roughly was around the high street funding applications. The first round of high street fund applications ever since the first round of applications opened, we brought on 4 people to work closely with business and local organisations, because we're really concerned that a lot of times the same money goes to the same areas who have very good, people who understand how to write bids. And so we're very conscious about making sure we get a really good geographical spread of funding. So we've got a team of 4 now who are working with local communities and both local authorities to make sure that we're getting a fair spread of bids right across the region. So happy to take any more questions, Chair, if you'd like.
Thank you, David. I have 3 questions at the moment, and if anyone else wishes to indicate, please do so. The first person is Councillor Sharma.
Thank you, Chair. I note that you mentioned the 2-train hourly service, and as a recent convert to using trains, which I haven't really done in the past, I found the service to be fantastic, but the congestion at York is really unbearable. I've been on during the summer, people standing, all the aisles blocked up. There's obviously a need for a 2-hourly service, and that would make it. And when delays take place, that congestion just piles up. And I just wondered how positive have been the reactions from the various organisations towards that, and can you see a time frame within which it might actually get implemented? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So when we first had the very first meeting about the half-hourly trains, it was back in December 19. It was a week before Christmas last year, and it was the last meeting I had before I went on Christmas leave, and it was the most negative meeting I've ever been in my life. It was, this is absolutely no way is this ever going to be delivered. It's never been delivered before. And so when you have a meeting like that just before you go on a week's holiday, you kind of go, okay, we have to really assess this, because this isn't good enough to have that kind of attitude from the operators who were engaged. Subsequently, since then, it's turned out that it is very much possible. There is a lack of train drivers, is the main challenge around it. We initially heard it would be a shortage of about 23 train drivers. We don't think it's as many as that, but there is certainly a shortage of train drivers. And obviously, if you take drivers from one service and go put them on another, then you're going to be leaving another area exposed. So the main challenge around it, it appears to be, is the actual lack of train drivers, which we're on with making sure that we are, well, we're not, but with the operator who will be running the service, working with them to get the recruitment of that up and running. And so we can get those train drivers trained up. It takes between about 12 and 18 months to train a driver, because obviously it's a very technical, very challenging job. But that is in the process of, I'm not going to give a specific time date, but it is, I'm very, very, very optimistic that it will happen. From that meeting to where we are now, we're literally talking about, okay, it can happen. We're now down to like those great details of things like, okay, we need to have the drivers. So we've gone from being completely no way ever to now, yes, it will, but I'll just come with those technical challenges. But we are working with the operators, TPE, Northern, with government to really drive that business case, because as it's been touched on, I'm sure it will come up as well, is investments into the north, investments into coastal areas have never been there in the same level as they are in the south and the southeast, because investments around, when you start implementing it through the Green Book, which is a very technical way of assessing if investments are worthy or not, places like coastal areas, just those numbers never add up. Which is, I'm sure the A64 question will come up. I think I've already been asked that question. I haven't even started the meeting yet, but investments like that have never added up, because the numbers don't add up in a traditional sense. Whereas now we're putting a really strong business case together. Actually, it's not about just supporting Scarborough and York. It's about all the development opportunities along Seamer, along Moulton, at Haxby now as well, and development of opportunities around the business case, the houses that could be built on that route, the brownfield development, the industry and business case as well. So it's a lot stronger case. I'm very optimistic it will happen. Time frame TB is really around about the length it will take to train those drivers to actually go run the service. And I'm very glad you're using the train as well.
Councillor Trumper.
Thank you, Chair. I do have 3 questions, if that's okay. We've heard quite a lot what we've been doing in Scarborough about improving transport and providing funding for the boat hoist. Could you explain to us what you're doing in Whitby? What you're doing in Whitby to improve the connectivity and local transport needs? Would you provide funding to help repair, to go towards to repair the cliff lift, which is a really important asset for the town. And also in regards to a dedicated officer for the coast, you mentioned you have a team member who's a knowledge on coastal issues, but is not a dedicated officer. Can you employ a dedicated officer for the coast to deal with all those coastal issues that are quite unique to the rural areas and to the city region, and come and report to this area committee on a regular basis?
So on the final point, everything we do is for everyone across York and North Yorkshire. We are developing a specific rural and a specific coastal plan. We are still developing a team as we speak. So if we do feel like we need to bring a specialist or a individual person who's solely focused on that, that may be something that we happen in time. But we are developing a specific rural and coastal plan as we go forward, because those challenges around rural, coastal and urban are very different. And I say we are the first area that really encapsulates all three. We have a good majority of my team actually do live in this part of the region, so they do have a very good understanding of it. But say when we are developing our skills strategy, our housing strategy, our transport strategy, all those elements are taken in. So it's not like we just do it and then we just add in. It's very much encapsulating the whole area. In terms of what we're doing in Whitby, we've funded a couple of the community projects over there. So the Wish Foundation, the Wish building over there, we put in an accessibility lift in there to make that building more accessible to all people as well. And we're developing the local transport plan as we speak again, which will obviously incorporate the entire area, including places like Whitby. Our skills funding, again, that's going across the entire region. So that £50 million that we're funding, that will be going into places like Whitby as well. In terms of the cliff lift, that was only raised to me actually the other day, so I'm not over all the details on that. I'd imagine it's probably a North Yorkshire Council project, so I don't know where they are with it. I don't have the full details of that. We can certainly review it, but we're not a blank check. We don't have endless amounts of funding, so it's understanding where the best place is to get funding from, and that's not always the combined authority. If you'd like to come back, Chair. Oh, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for your reply, and I'd just like to see, do you have a date when your transport strategy will be published? And then basically in that strategy, will it basically highlight issues in Whitby and how to resolve those issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very much working with both local authorities and their transport team. So we're not coming in looking to reinvent the wheel, pardon the pun. It's taking very much what both local authorities have been doing, what their challenges are facing, what are the information that's coming through, and developing that plan as a collective, rather sort of taking down the borders, I suppose, and taking down those boundaries, having that collective approach across York and North Yorkshire, what that local transport plan will be, and obviously highlighting some of those challenges in our region and in specific areas as well. But obviously it's very much, it's an ongoing process. We think it will probably be done early next year. It's a huge piece of work, a huge undertaking, something that hasn't been done before. We are already driving investment into transport plans already, transport schemes already. So things like under 19s bus fare cap holding at £1. That was just in York originally. Now that's across the whole of York and North Yorkshire, for example. So there are some things we're doing, but that local transport plan probably early next year will be when we'll have it.
Thank you. And on regards to the cliff lift, if North Yorkshire Council did request potential funding from the combined authority, you say you haven't got it's obviously we expect that your budget is, again, it's limited, but if that request came forward, would you look into it seriously?
We'd look into it, but North Yorkshire Council have got more money than I have, so.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, but they have.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Matt Scaife, I'm pleased to hear your support of Rachel Maskell's private members bill licensing holiday lets. In towns like Scarborough, we're seeing mounting pressures on housing stock from two directions: clusters of HMOs and the uncontrolled spread of short-term holiday lets such as Airbnb. Without a strong policy in the new North Yorkshire local plan, councils risk losing the ability to prevent clustering that damages community cohesion, inflates rent and limits housing for local families. Will you add your voice to support local authorities having stronger planning powers to manage both HMOs and short-term lets, including the ability to resist clustering, restrict conversions, and protect residential neighbourhoods from becoming hollowed out holiday zones. For example, SBC had a supplementary planning document that covered HMO clustering, and the new NYC local plan currently does not have this. Thank you.
Yes, I will. I mean, it's one of those things again where it's not necessarily a specific coastal or rural or urban area. This is the challenge we're facing right across the region, quite frankly. I obviously do have a big emphasis on house building. That's one of the main areas of focus for me. We do get the brownfield funding, which we've initial 12.3 million, I think was, we just had nearly an extra 8 million. A big focus on that is the affordable and social housing element, because one of the big challenges we have is the lack of affordable, truly affordable homes. But the second one is obviously a lot of those homes are getting bought up and turned into second homes and holiday lets. That's a problem in Whitby, Scarborough, Robin Hood Bay, Filey, centre of York, everywhere. And if we don't combat it, we are just going to have communities that are completely bored out and unfortunately will just die. You know, our local shops, schools, everything will just close away, and you'll just have communities that are just not lived in. And we are seeing it probably at a faster rate in coastal areas and some of our rural areas in the moors and the dales as well. And it's driving out local people, young people, they can't stay there. And then unfortunately, then all your business and stuff goes well. So it's a really big focus. It's all well and good building more houses, but if we're just funneling them in and they're going to fall into that same category, we're not really solving the problem, are we? So there's a few areas we're really focused on. I'm supporting Rachel on her drive for that as well, because it's incredibly important we do that. A big focus on the affordable and social housing element. We're the first region outside of London to sign an Affordable Home Standard Act as well, which is looking at not only the quality of the homes we're building, but the energy efficiency of the homes we're building. Because it's one thing building a home that's affordable, it needs to be affordable to live in, and that's quite often very two different things as well. So a lot of focusing around that, and obviously now having the Strategic Place Partnership Homes England, those key challenges that we have around rurality of building homes, coastal areas of building homes, the lack of affordability of homes, there, three of our priorities have gone into that partnership to really focus on that as well.
Yeah, because I welcome what you've just said, and that really applies to the part of the question with regards to the short-term lets. The clustering of HMOs that was in the old supplementary planning document, which we had in place for Scarborough Borough Council, meant that if a HMO application was on in one area, and then next door or a couple of doors up the road, another application came in, as councillors and as planners, we could look at that and say, actually, that would present a cluster within a defined area, and therefore we had the opportunity to speak against that and decline it. Unfortunately, it is apparent now that North Yorkshire Council's new local plan isn't seriously looking at adding this into the framework. So we either need to be preparing an SPD, or we need to have it written into the new planning document. And I think if you were to add your voice to that, as Scarborough Town Council has recently done, then obviously the weight from yourself would be very welcome. Thank you.
Happy to, yeah.
I'm just going to take this opportunity to add something to that. Insofar as the term affordable homes always gets right up my nose, they're not affordable. The definition of an affordable home is 20% under market value, and in Whitby, they're still unaffordable at 20% under market value. So I would make a plea for social housing more than I would for affordable homes.
And I don't agree. Sorry, and I do agree on that. Sorry, we have a big emphasis on the affordable and social homes. So just an example, one of the projects we supported in Bedale, where there were 4-bed homes there being rented now for £400 a month, and the energy efficiency of them also meant that they're in about £100 to run. So that is truly affordable. I think we can all agree on that in a place like Bedale, which is obviously equally as expensive. But I completely agree with you. The affordable is sometimes a very loose term, but certainly more affordable than they would have been. But we need to drive that down, because some of our areas, it's 14 times the average salary to house price across some of our areas. The average is about 9. If you go to communities or areas outside of York and North Yorkshire, instantly drops to 3.5 times the average. So we are really incredibly high. Couple that with things like second homes and holiday lets, it's just taking the opportunity for anyone to live in our region, and that's hence why we're having a lower than average young person living in our region and a higher than average older person in our region. So it's having a knock-on effect on our opportunity to grow the economy and to have those high skilled jobs as well. So yeah.
Councillor Broadbent. Thank you, Chair. David, you mentioned a few minutes ago about that horrible amount of people waiting for a home in North Yorkshire. And just before you arrived, I think there was I believe there was a question on empty homes in North Yorkshire, which is incredible, really, that the fact that, you know, there are empty properties. And just in our patch, there's a hotel, I think it's about 50 bedrooms, and it's been empty for 10 years. And it's not only making Scarborough look bad, you know, I believe there's even people that's attached to that building have apartments. They can't sell them because of the deterioration. So I'm just wondering, obviously, empty homes, I know that Alison did mention that it's 6 months they are looking at it. But I just really ask you if you would, this empty homes is part of sort of rehoming our unfortunate residents that have no roof over their head. Thank you.
It is also a really big focus of our housing plan. So we've got an opportunity with North Yorkshire Now Council through the reorganisation to actually view what property potentially even North Yorkshire Council own that they may no longer need, and how we can develop those into housing as well. But so we are looking at a specific housing plan around the opportunity to develop current buildings or empty spaces that could be turned to housing as well. A focus of the brownfield funding is actually allocated to, you know, brownfield sites. So we're after more flexibility around we can use that for, but we are working with Homes England as well to have looking at a specific plan around actually developing empty buildings and, you know, upper floors of shops and these kind of things, and how they can be turned into housing as well, because there's nothing more environmentally friendly than developing a building that's already there for housing rather than building new. And obviously times can be much more cost effective as well, but no one wants empty properties. And to say, when we've got over 10,000 people on a housing waiting list and we have empty buildings, it seems absolutely shocking that we are in that situation. Yeah.
Morning, David. A couple of things, they all amount to the same area, but, you know, the government are wanting these accelerated new towns. In Caton, which is my area, we have 3 building sites within the last 2 years, more or less all finished now, and I have to say one of them is mainly social housing, but they are all sold before they're even finished. So houses are needed. However, we're a village. I've lived there 50 years. The roads aren't, you cannot alter the roads within the village. We have no bypass, but the main traffic that's going to the A64 has to come through the village to get there. We've got this fantastic Schneider who moved from Caton Low Road from a small premises, but they've grown amazingly over the years, and to, as you say now, is fantastic. They've opened this for employment. However, people, if they want to come and work there, they build this new Mountby, but no way to get there. There's no bypass round anywhere. We've got, as Alison said, we've a sewerage system which was built many, many years ago. It is failing. We had them out the other day. The other side of this is when you build these homes, you know, the family homes, which they need to be. I've this week alone got 2 gentlemen who have been in hospital living in family homes who now need to go. They can't go home, can't get upstairs, look after themselves. We have no facilities with 2 little areas which have the waiting lists. I've checked this week. They won't get in them, and yet they've lived in Caton all their lives. When you're building these places, why don't, considering the high percentage in Caton are elderly people because they've moved from somewhere else to retire in what they class as a nice village. You know, we're so near the the coast, etc. So they move, but when they need to go into a smaller home, 1 bedroom, or somewhere where there's a bit of care, nothing. So there's no sort of, well, I won't say end of life, but end of our age upwards. I'm looking around, somebody will tell me off in a minute. Phil probably. But when you become a certain age, you still want to remain within your village. But it's impossible if there is nowhere to go. And that sort of leads on. I've been on the council long enough. This SEMA station has been on headlines for years, and it would make such a massive difference because people going to work, they don't all work in our area. So if they're going to Malton, York, that could be made so much better, even if it was used at somewhere else. If we did it on the business park, that is building up, but there's still loads of area of room there for investment, for a station, or, you know, somewhere for them to park when they do go on the train. But I just really worry because obviously this Mount B is gathering pace. It will come to planning, and I just think we need to get the basics right before we look at continuing building. We do need the houses, but we need everything else around them to be correct for them to be built. Thank you.
And I wholly agree. It's a wider piece. You can't just build houses. It's all the infrastructure, everything has to come with it, which is why having that strategic place partnership with Homes England, we get that more direct voice into Homes England to actually say what the housing requirements of our region are and how we can develop those plans with the communities and with the local area. So absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree. You can't just keep building houses on top of houses and have the same infrastructure. And that's been the problem. It's been too siloed. Whereas now with the CA, our job is to basically have that overarching view of how transport, of how housing, how everything all does come into it. And again, I completely agree on the homes we're building, making sure that they are for life homes, I suppose. I look at the house that my mum lives in, who's 75 with dementia. It's nowhere near as it fit for purpose for her. Absolutely no way. I haven't got a cat and else chance of getting her out of that house, I can tell you that. But it isn't fit for purpose. But some of the projects we have actually supported and working with the York and North Yorkshire Housing Partnership, we've actually developed some housing projects already that do have that lifelong housing needs, because again, like I touched on before, we have got higher than average older person in the region, and it's making sure that they can still have a life here and can have that independence. So you're right, it all comes into it, and that's what we can do now with Homes England. On SEMA, again, it's just primed opportunity right there, but it hasn't been done before. Why, I have no idea. It's just been overlooked by local authorities. You know, why, I don't know, because it's huge opportunity. So again, it buys into that half-hourly train going straight through SEMA, but the development opportunity around there for drive businesses and development is absolutely huge, and that's why it's one of our key sites, and one of the key business cases that we're working on is a business case for SEMA in that area, and particularly around the station, how we can develop the station, but then the development land around it, because it's absolutely prime for it, absolutely perfect space for it.
Yeah, thank you. Don't want to debate anymore, but I have got to mention that obviously with Eastfield Medical Centre, that is massive. It's been closed. It's now moved into Scarborough temporarily, but we don't know how temporary. So people from Eastfield and Caton and area, you know, it's the most deprived area in the area, and yet with no doctors. So they're having to go into Scarborough or have phone call appointments. It's worrying that you've got a deprived area where an elderly people area where we've no facilities. It is ongoing, is that? But every time I go up, or there was a flood, it was an electrical, but this was months ago. You know, this is a really big building, which I would hope would be back in action.
If I may, Chair, just on health, you've touched on that, even though it's not a responsibility of me, thankfully at the minute, but we are actually developing a health on the high street plan and how we can actually bring health and health services into our communities. And we're looking at a specific urban and coastal offering of that. So what that would mean to basically take some services out of hospitals and bring them more into the communities. That work started about 2 weeks ago. And so we're looking at what the requirements would be of our region, as we touched on before, maybe a slightly older than average person living in some of our communities. So what health services they may need and how we can potentially bring out those out of the hospital and put them more into our communities. So they're much more accessible. Challenge that we face in our rural and in our coastal and our rural areas extremely. So we're developing that as we speak. So yeah, but yeah, on that as well.
You, Chairman. Mr. Scaife, I just really would be remiss of me not to thank you for concurring when I asked the question to Alison Hume, our MP, about our harbour. It's something I'm very, very conscious of. It's the centre of my ward. I overlook the harbour, and yes, I want it to advance, and I've been working with them for over 25 years, the length of time I've been a councillor. So that I'd want to thank you for that. I also, as President of Scarborough, Chamber of Trade and Commerce, so thank you for the High Street Fund. We had an excellent presentation last Tuesday by Sarah Battersby. And it was really, really helpful to our members. Julian Caddy was there as well, to do with the Scarborough Fair and all we're doing for the town. And I can really say, because I have a business in the High Street, at the lower end of the High Street, that we're benefiting from this, and thank you very much. It's nice to give you a thank you rather than odd thing. And there's lots of mention of transport, not just because I've got the train shop, but yes, I follow trains and railways avidly. I travel on them all the time. And I think the half-hour service to Scarborough, to York, etc., will advance us. Not only that, but it helps our community and the commuting. My brother was a director of Persimmon Homes, and the SEMA site was the fastest selling site they had in the country, because people moved here knowing they could commute to all parts, not as a second home. They came to live here permanently. They brought more economy to our town, and we're finding this with a lot of other sites, as I understand as well. And the other thing as well, which I thought was so ironic, because it's been mentioned, SEMA Station. I was at my son's in Edinburgh this weekend, and on my Facebook flashed a picture of the proposals for SEMA Station, which I'd never seen. I mentioned it to someone else and they hadn't seen, but I thought it was really intriguing. I can't find it again. If I could, I'd send it to everybody. But it was such amazing, and how the fact of half-hour travelling, half-hour just trains will also really bring us a better park and ride, because people can park at this station and come into town. And that will help everything. And I'm just really conscious that's got to be on the cards. I understand the Haxby one because I was born in York, so I understand the railways. And I think it's good what you're doing for transport. We've benefited in the town from the cheap bus fares as well. That brings lots and lots of people into our town. But the only thing we've got as people arrive in the station is the problem we've got of the people who come to live here. That don't have homes, that come to Scarborough and they sit in our doorways, but it's prevalent everywhere. I go to Edinburgh and they've got tents in shop doorways there. We haven't at least got that yet. But I'm just conscious of all these things, and we're working together with the police and everything, but it's just really helping our people stay safe as well. But a lot of people have spoke before me, but I just wanted to bring those things up and thank you, and to say the need for SEMA Station and as well the half-hourly station. Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, if I just come back on one point there, just on challenges around homelessness in particular, we've just been awarded, I think it's 100,000 from government to work on a strategy with both local authorities again to how we can really support homelessness right across the region. There is some good work being done across York and North Yorkshire, but more needs to be done, absolutely. And so we've been given some extra funding to really drive some more investment into support, and with the CA, how we can come in and add extra to it. So it's not just about necessarily providing a place for people to go and live who need it. It's also how we can support them with maybe the skills or opportunities that they may need as well. So it's that second trench of, once we've found somewhere safe for someone to live, it's then almost then what? And actually we with the CA, with the work we have around our adult skills funding, how we can drive some of that funding to specifically supporting people who have maybe potentially fallen on hard times through no fault of their own potentially, and how we can support them, away from being in that place they are as well. Thank you for your kind words. On the high street in particular, it's a big passion. Obviously, I come from owning a shop on the high street in particular. Scarborough in particular for me, I'm with so much potential, so many people come here. How do we make so much more of it? And getting those investments into the high street, really just emphasising how important our high streets are, not just for businesses, but a place for people to come and see and visit and just spend time really together. So, and the wider potential of the half-hourly trains. I think someone touched on earlier on that it's a fairly good service. It is a pretty good service, but about 18% of those trains are either cancelled or delayed. And if the train is only an hour, and then you're not going to wait another hour. It's like no one's going to wait another hour, so you naturally then just jump in the car, don't you? Or you don't go for your point, whatever. So getting that more consistency of service, but also every half an hour, you're more inclined to catch that train and be able to go and use it. And the opportunity for that whole corridor is ginormous, particularly at SEMA, like you said.
I mean, I live in the main street, so I'm regularly up and down. I also chair a group, you have a similar one in York, called Scarborough Anti-Theft Group, where we look after and try to prevent shoplifting. And we have 80 radios that go around the town. We're a self-funding body, and you've helped us with funding towards that, which we're very grateful for. But it doesn't make a difference because we have a direct link to CCTV. We did try and get one connected in Whitby. I don't know whether we've actually got that done. Sandra's looking. I don't think we have, but we keep trying because it's a really good service, as it works in York and it works in Scarborough. But this week in particular, I particularly note there was a young lady. I stopped her because she was in the shop doorway, and I thought she was actually 21, but she looked a lot younger. And I was concerned as to why she was in there. I stopped to talk to her, and she came from Wakefield, escaping domestic violence. And so I, along with someone else, he was going to ring 101, and I rang our new inspector for the area. It was very, very good, proactive, just to make sure why she hadn't got linked to foundation and things like this, which I'm also linked to. And she said, well, because I don't qualify. And I thought that was terrible, and how vulnerable it was for a young lady of 21 to be sitting on the street. Anyway, hopefully she's been satisfied. But it is an issue, and I know you're addressing it, but Scarborough is a lovely place to come to. So unfortunately we do, get this, but we are trying to control it, and our public space protection order has also helped as well. But thank you.
There has been a big press on shop sort of how we can really combat that, because it's one of the crimes that is really still going on the up. There's been a lot of really good work actually over in Scarborough, and Tim Forbes, the Chief Constable, when they were sort of implementing how they're going to combat shop theft. Part of the work actually did start from Scarborough, and actually some of the work that's been happening over here is actually going to be rolled out across the region, because it has been successful. We need to do more, absolutely. But again, because it's know that traditionally shop theft was kind of almost have ignored as not as a huge problem, but actually we know that it does have a huge knock-on impact on businesses, particularly small business owners like I am. But it's a lot of time it's that gateway crime into other things. So it's organised crime. It's the link into drug and alcohol abuse. So but again, it comes back to that. Why is that person potentially doing that shop theft, and how we can support them in the process? One of my first days out when I came out with the police was over to Scarborough, and we were doing some drug raids, and we kicked in. I wasn't allowed to kick in the door, by the way, but we went through and kicked in this door, and we arrested this young couple, early 20s, 22, 23 years old, for drug offences, and they were clearly very high themselves. And I spoke to the police officer, and they said, yeah, we've been arresting this lady's mum for the last 15 years, and this woman that we arrested has got a 5-year-old daughter. And I was like, what are we doing then? Are we just going to go through the same cycle in 15 years' time? We're going to be arresting that 5-year-old child, or we're going to actually start combating it and actually really drawing a line of sand now, saying this isn't good enough, which is why we've done a big focus on that early intervention and prevention work, where we've doubled the funding into that. But also, why is someone involved in, say, shop theft? Is it a drug and alcohol related challenge that then we can actually direct those into those support services, so they're not going down that route, we're actually going there. And then with things like the adult skills funding and the connect to work funding we've got as well, how we can drive that investment into those people that would traditionally maybe get ignored and left behind, so we can stop that cycle of people just going through the same cycle, which unfortunately a lot of people do.
By self-funding Scarborough Anti-Theft Group, and we've got the award with distinction, which used to be a Home Office award. We all pay an annual membership about £100, but it's really worth it. We protect people as well with lots and lots of things. But I'm glad, and I know your system in York works as well. But it's a good backbone for the town, because we can then report things that are happening in and around our high street and other areas. We've got them in rural areas as well. Okay, but thank you.
I have 4 more people indicating they want to speak. I intend to take Councillor Pearson and Councillor Phillips first, followed by Councillor Sharma and Councillor Broadbent, or Councillor Broadbent, not Councillor Sharma, Councillor Broadbent, just because it's a second question, Eric. Yeah, but Councillor Pearson first.
Right, thank you. Thank you, David. I'm really pleased that you are promoting social and affordable housing. But one of the problems I've got on it in my area is if you're somebody from, we'll say, York City, and you want a social house, your maximum amount you can have in 1 year is £60,000. If you're going for affordable, that goes up to 80,000. But in North Yorkshire, they don't have the same. They don't have an affordable limit. They only have a social limit. So if your earnings over £60,000 per year, you are not eligible for affordable housing. And that is just a minor, but it is a problem. It's a government policy for those figures. And I just wondered whether you could look into seeing why North Yorkshire have a different policy than York Council, York Town, City.
I must admit, I don't have the answer, but I can have a look at it. I didn't realise there wasn't one in North Yorkshire. I don't know why, but I can have a look at that and see what I can find out if I may. That's okay.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Very brief. We all here are, there's a term we use at North Yorkshire, kings and queens in our own division. And if something is happening from the combined authority, we can be your best friends if we're told about it. Facebook is not the way to learn about proposed plans for stations and things like that. So is it possible to try and improve communications to rank and file members, because we are all at area committee today as representatives of our divisions, not because of any executive position or anything. They've put us there. We had a job interview in 22 and were successful, and you had a similar thing last year. So we need to work as friends. So can we please improve on communication?
First of all, 100% is hence why I'm here today. I completely take on board. We do obviously have members from York and North Yorkshire Council on the combined authority and are heavily involved with officers from both areas. So, assuming rightly or wrongly, that I would understand that a lot of that information maybe filters through from North Yorkshire and who are the members and who the officers we're dealing with would come through to you. But if not, I'm sure that's something that we can review and take away and maybe give a more regular update or send information out, whatever it may be. I did say when we put the funding in for a plan for every town that North Yorkshire got, I think it's 1.5 million to develop a plan for every town that would then fall out of their business plans and propositions that then we can go and invest in, or North Yorkshire can, or whoever. That it was very important when I spoke to leaders at North Yorkshire that area committees were very heavily involved in those, because you represent your communities and you know it far better than I do. So it's very much making sure that linking is going through both local authorities, but obviously coming from us as well. So we can surely improve that from our side. Absolutely. I'm sure we can always improve comms, but it's also maybe looking at what information is coming through from officers and leaders who are sat on the CA board, that making sure that information is going down as well.
Councillor Broadbent. Eric, you have the final question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to come back. David, I was just wondering if you could give us an update or give us some more information on Alexandra Dennis, the old Plaxtons. A couple of months ago, they decided to wind down the place at Falkirk where they produce electric double-decker buses, etc. I heard that agreement through political pressure then was cancelled. And I was just wondering, is there any detrimental effect on the present workforce at Plaxton's here in Scarborough because of that cancellation? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, so I had a round table maybe a month or so back with the bus minister, Simon, and other representatives around the table about the procurement process for local authorities and CAs to be able to purchase buses, and making sure a big emphasis, and coaches, a big emphasis on buying British effectively, and the opportunity around Alexander Dennis and obviously where they are around their ability to build, you know, that we need, and making sure that areas like ours, even though we have Alexander Dennis in our patch, we were overlooked because somewhere like Manchester or London put in an order for 1,000 buses, and if we need some, then we'd be a long way down the pecking order. So on that side of it, we have really pushed forward the importance of buying that British element of it. We do have a member in my team as well who works directly with government and works closely with those larger employers, so Alexander Dennis, Schneider, McCain's, other ones over in this patch as well, to make sure that they are being supported by government, whatever they may be. The last I heard was obviously, as you said, the pressure at Falker was meaning that they were winding down that. I believe that's still going to head. I don't know any more than that, and that workforce and that extra was going to come into our patch. So one bad area might actually end up supporting us in a roundabout way, but it's making sure that Alexander Dennis are supported and they are around those tables when we're dealing with government around about the procurement, working with CAs and other local authorities, make sure we're emphasising buying British buses, which hasn't always been the case, unfortunately. We know that, for example, Chinese buses get heavily subsidised by government, so actually can a lot of time be much cheaper, but our saying to government was actually that's all well and good, but actually the knock-on effect of actually supporting jobs in areas like Scarborough and the whole knock-on effect of actually that is far more than just those subsidies and reduced costs. So it's really looking at social value element of it as well. So we are ongoing conversation with Alexander, and my team does meet with them on a fairly regular basis. I can follow up any more information we have because that meeting was probably about 6 weeks ago now, so I've not heard anything since.
Okay. Thank you, David. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us today. It's very welcome, and we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in the near future. Thank you. Before we move on to the next item, which could take some considerable time, I'm going to suggest a 5-minute comfort break. earlier, I intend taking the 4 questions from members of the public first on this item, Whitby Cliff Lift. I then will invite Councillor Trumper to present his petition, and then I will go to the officers for the report. I think the debate about the cliff lift will determine the action that we take in respect of the petition. So I think it's only sensible to take it first. Where are we? I have first 2 questions are from Dorothy Russell and Councillor Linda Wild. Councillor Trumper, I understand you're reading these on their behalf.
So, thank you, Chair and members. So the first question is from Dorothy Russell, who sat up in the public gallery. To whom it may concern, I feel very strongly that the Whitby Cliff Lift should be repaired. It's part of the heritage of the town, and without it, the town becomes much smaller. Without access to the seawall, we are discriminating against the disabled, elderly, and the young families who either live or visit our beautiful town. The paths down to the beach are steep and uneven, and not ideal for young children and the old generation who may have mobility needs. The cliffs have very steep sides, and any fall could be fatal. I myself, along with many local people, have rented a beach for decades. Our children grew up on the beach, but since I have had a knee replacement, I find the steep paths very scary. Many of the beach renters haven't been able to access their huts as a result of the cliff lift being out of action. The replacement bus has not been advertised at all, and therefore should not have been and therefore has not been used very much. We need our lift repairing ASAP and ask that you find the money, please. Dr. Russell.
No response required to that. Would you like to read the one from Councillor Linda Wild?
Yes, I will do. Following on from my question at the last meeting of the area committee, can NYC please confirm, although they have not issued a statement, that the cliff lift in Whitby is to be filled in and no replacement will be made due to 5.5 million costs that they have explored on that they have is to be filled in and no replacement will be made due to the 5.5 million costs that they have explored all possible scenarios. This seemed like a done deal that the lift would not be replaced or repaired. From the time NYC took over from the lift would not be replaced or repaired from the time NYC took over from the Scarborough Council. NYC have not updated the public on the status of Anglo-American involvement in the inspection investigation into the real state of the shaft and lift. The community of Whitby do not accept your decision to dispose of this valuable asset to Whitby and seek assurances that all other avenues are looked into to save the lift and that no rash actions will be taken to fill in the lift. Can this assurance be given to the people of Whitby? Thank you.
No decision has been made in respect of the cliff lift at Whitby. The decision-making body is the executive of North Yorkshire Council. On the agenda today is a full report which sets out all the options available. The report also includes the advice received from Anglo-American. The area committee will consider the report and will be making comments to the executive for them to take into account in making their future decision. Ask Councillor Turner, would you like to go to the microphone?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to follow on with the questions that have already been asked, but before I do ask my question, I'd just like to state, and I don't think I need to say this to any of you, but I will reiterate it, that Whitby is consistently in the top 5 of the most visited tourist destination for a seaside town. We more than punch above our weight, adding to the revenue that comes back to North Yorkshire Council in the tourism revenue benefit to this area. And I think that to even consider taking away one of our historical assets to the town, one of the things that's attractive, you're not only looking at one of your options today to fill in the lift, you're looking at an option to take away even the housing of the lift on the top. This is an absolutely disgraceful suggestion to go around and take yet more of Whitby away from us. And I can't stress that enough. We are as passionate about our cliff lift as you were about your Scarborough football pitch, and we deserve supporting in every avenue that you're going down. And at this moment in time, it really does feel as if Whitby's being left out on a limb. And my question to this committee is, will the members of this committee vote against closing our cliff lift, revisit the reports that are going before the committee today, and ensure that we retain it? I've varied a little bit my question, I do apologise, but I'm putting it to this committee who collectively represent both the residents of both towns, both Scarborough and Whitby, and we're looking to you for your support and help us retain one of our precious heritage, historical assets to the town. Thank you.
The committee today will reach a position at the end of the debate on which of the options in the officer's report they will resolve to endorse or otherwise. The final decision will be for the executive. Can I call Elizabeth Mulholland?
Thank you, Chair. Scarborough's local plan of 2017 Policy Deck 5 states that proposals affecting a conservation area should preserve and enhance its character or appearance. The upper building of the cliff lift is in Whitby's conservation area. How does this proposal preserve the character of the West Cliff when it's removing an iconic structure? And why is there no mention in your report that you are proposing works in a conservation area? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. When the executive of North Yorkshire Council make its decision, then subsequent to that, if works are required that affect the top building, these will form part of the planning application that will be decided by the Scarborough and Whitby Area Planning Committee. Any planning application will set out the merits or demerits of any work to the top station, including effects on the conservation area, and the application will be subject to a statutory public consultation before any decision is made. Now calling Councillor Trumper. Oh, sorry, you have a supplementary if you want it. Are you sure? Okay. Councillor Trumper, I call on you to deliver your petition.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for accepting the petition. So the petition, as read, basically, Whitby Cliff Lift is a critical asset for our beloved town, a lifeline for many residents and visitors alike. It stands as an important bridge, allowing individuals, particularly those with disabilities, to access the beautiful beach facilities that are otherwise challenging to reach. The lift symbolises inclusivity and accessibility, ensuring that everyone, regardless of physical ability, can enjoy the stunning coastline of Whitby. The iconic structure has served our community for decades, but now faces potential closure due to funding constraints and a lack of maintenance. Its existence is not an amenity but a necessity for our numerous people whose lives and leisurely pursuits depend on it. The Whitby Cliff Lift is more than just a means of transportation, it's a part of our town's charm. an historical fabric cherished by locals and tourists alike. Statistics show that there's a significant number of people with mobility issues in Whitby and its surrounding areas who rely on this lift for their seaside experience. Closing it permanently without an acceptable alternative would mean taking away their ability to fully enjoy our natural resources. It's crucial to act swiftly and collectively to preserve this essential service for future generations. It's time to come together as a community to protect the staple of our town's heritage and ensure access for all. Let's not let a lack of resource dictate the well-being of our community members. By signing this petition, you are supporting the preservation of Whitby Cliff Lift and promoting equal access to our beautiful beach for everyone, no matter their physical abilities. Let's strive to keep Whitby inclusive and accessible. Please sign the petition. And that's how it ended. So I started this petition out of frustration. At the June meeting, I was expecting the report to be published at a June meeting for the area committee members, the local members, to discuss. That report was not published and didn't come forward to that meeting. I felt like we were basically not being able to have our say on which is such an important asset for Whitby. I will thank Councillor Mark Crane and the officer Chris Bourne for postponing the decision that the executive that was going to take place in July, and then bringing this report to this meeting to discuss. But I think it was the pressure applied by myself and other members that has brought the report to this meeting for members to have their decision on and to discuss. It's really important that local members have their say. Going back on the cliff lift, it was mothballed. It's a legacy issue basically taken on from Scarborough Council. And it was mothballed back in 2019, 2020. I won't say it was closed because I don't believe it's officially been closed because there hasn't been a proper fully public consultation. But it was mothballed back then. And through that period, there was no works on the cliff lift to improve it. No maintenance works. So that's obviously added to its current state. Councillor Swanwick, I would like to thank because he raised the issue with Anglo-American a meeting.
Councillor Trumper, we're getting into the debate here and not receiving the petition. So we've now received the petition. We will let the officer present the report and then we will have the debate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much to the committee for inviting me to present this report today. I'm sure that everyone's aware this is a very, very sensitive and emotive subject for the community of Whitby, and we are certainly treating it as such. I think it's also worth thanking Councillor Trumper for the work that he's put in, and certainly the discussions we've had over the summer as to how this report should come forward. I've just heard what you've said about whether it is closed or not. I was going to say the factual position is that the lift has been closed. We might perhaps agree to say that it hasn't been operational since 2022. But I have had certainly an awful lot of emails from members of the public saying North Yorkshire Council must not close this lift. I think those are factually incorrect. It has been closed since 2022 or unoperational since 2022, in which way you want to look at it. The decision on the future of the lift, as has been correctly said, is reserved to the executive of North Yorkshire Council. And the purpose of this report today is to allow members of this committee to be informed of all of the facts in all of their detail and to make comments to the executive in order that the executive can take those into account in whatever future decision it may make. So I probably owe you all an apology because I felt that transparency was key here. And so you have got a voluminous report in front of you, but I felt that was essential to put that information in the public domain and to put it in full in front of this committee so that you can make informed comments. So you have got in full the report from Scarborough Council from 2020, the report from Aligned Property Partners in 2025, and also the full comments from Anglo-American again in 2025. Now, the facts are there have been 2 surveys of the cliff lift and 1 site visit by Anglo American, and all of the findings are very largely the same. The survey by Scarborough Council in January 2020 identified significant corrosion and water ingress in the shaft, and that was the report that subsequently resulted in the closure of the lift. The survey by Align Property Partners in January 2025 identified that the lift was not in a serviceable condition and the lift shaft was showing water ingress generally across the majority of the joints. The high-level review by Anglo American in June 2025 noted that the shaft was relatively dry with no significant water ingress and expressed the view that the main source of water is due to moisture accumulation related to a lack of ventilation. Their high-level view also noted the poor state of the lift equipment, the staircase and the top building as well. So there's a lot of commonality there between the reports. All of the reports agree that the lift can be repaired and put back into working order. The only difference really between the reports is on the source and extent of water ingress. You'll note, obviously, the 2 reports from Scarborough Council and Align Property Partners were made in January, in the middle of winter, and the report by Anglo American was made in June. So obviously there is seasonal difference there, and you will have seen that I asked a follow-up question of Anglo American after they'd submitted their initial email to me to ask if there was a possibility that that might be the reason that for the lack of water ingress seen in their site visit, as opposed to the water ingress that was definitely witnessed in the previous 2 site inspections. And they suggested that that was a possibility. And therefore, again, all of the surveys recommend that if you want to address the water ingress problem, then further monitoring and further surveys are required. So really, the question for the council relates to the risk of water ingress. You know, what does the council and the executive want to do about that? My personal professional view is it would be futile to repair the lift and bring it back into working use without addressing that water ingress problem or knowing that it exists. That would be a total waste of public money. So I think at the very least, if the recommendation from this committee to the executive is to repair the lift, then you need to have consideration that you need to do further surveys, that will take time and that they will cost money according to that. Alternatively, you could decommission the lift using any one of the Align property recommendations, and I think there were 4 recommendations that they made. That would, of course, give more cost certainty in that you would be spending public money, but you would have a definite outcome to that. On the side of that then is the council's public sector equality duty. And if the council and the executive were to decide to decommission the lift, then the council will have to consider its duties under that act and do a full EIA and equalities impact assessment to make sure it receives the necessary legal advice and takes those obligations into full consideration. So that is a very brief summary of the report in front of you, and I'm quite happy now to hand it over to the committee and invite you to debate what you consider and submit those findings to the executive. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to call on Councillor Trumper as I stopped him at the start of the debate, and I'll now let you continue.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, going back to where thank you, Chris, for the report and bringing the report to this meeting again, so local members can have their say on this such an important issue for Whitby and for the area. Going back, so I think I mean, the petition highlighted just how important it is to the town. 5,601 people have signed that petition, which is, well, I'm blown away about how many people have signed it. It's just showing it's such an important asset. We've heard from members of the public just how important an asset it is to Whitby. Councillor Turner, the Mayor of Whitby, highlighted that Whitby is one of the top 5 visited towns in the country. Again, highlighting the that we should be protecting our assets. So going back to what I was talking about, Councillor Swanwick brought up the issue with Anglo American regarding the cliff lift back in a meeting a few months ago. Anglo American agreed to survey the cliff lift and came back with a report, and the officers alluded to that report regarding the condensation and lack of ventilation, the improvement in ventilation in the shaft. There's a differing view between Align and Anglo American on that. I believe that because the officer highlighted that it was in June, I think we probably should be asking again that we could ask Anglo American if they would come back after the winter and come back in the new year and do another survey and to see how dry the shaft is then. And then we can, I mean, I think it is important that we do have more surveys of the shaft to basically to give us more information, because it, you know, if it is condensation, then that can be resolved at a much cheaper price than if it is a different issue, if it is a different water ingress issue coming into the shaft. The importance, I've highlighted the importance of the cliff lift to Whitby. I believe we should be repairing the cliff lift. I think it's such an important asset. Earlier last year, we tried to introduce the TRO onto the seawall because of the many issues with people driving down there, causing blockages, causing problems for the emergency service getting onto the seawall. And in that report, it did highlight when it came, the TRO wasn't able then to be introduced because of certain issues, but one of the issues is because of the cliff lift isn't working. The people are using different, those people with those disability issues are using different methods to get down there, but also, you know, the cliff lift would provide that easy accessibility to the beach huts, as it has done for many, many years until it was mothballed back in 2019. In regards to the people have a right, and the officer again has alluded that, have a right to use the facilities on the seawall, have a right to, if you've got a disability, you shouldn't be treated differently to people that haven't got it. You have a right to basically ask for a beach hut, to apply to use a beach hut, to use the facilities that are there for everybody to use. And again, we're taking away that the possibility of that not being that possibility for people to use those facilities if they've got mobility issues. The cost, I mean, I think the cost was, I mean, it's the first time I saw that figure. I have to say the 4.3 million, that's gone up to 5.5 million. I was completely unaware of that figure. Before, I'd talked to the officer, and there was in the region of £800,000, and that was kind of confirmed by Mark Crane, when I spoke to. So that figure that's just been introduced, I think it must be a guesstimate from SPC, because I've not seen that figure previously. You know, really, if that figure, we should be making sure that figure is correct, instead of just using this guesstimate, because it's a big difference between 800,000 and 5.5 million. And if I believe the figure to fill in the shaft was 600,000. So if it is 800,000 to repair, it's a £200,000 difference. We should be able to find that £200,000 to repair the lift. I mean, like I say, I recommend that we repair the lift, but I think we need more. But also, we need to invite Anglo American to do more surveys on the lift regarding the water ingress and the ventilation. And also, I think we do need a public consultation. If the decision by the executive is to close, then I think there needs to be a proper public consultation before that decision is basically passed into, you know, before any proper decision is made, there needs to be a public consultation. I think that's very important. They did say in the report that the petition is the public consultation on the petition. I mean, I set that up off my own back, and people have responded, just showing how passionate they are. But that was a petition I set up North Yorkshire Council to do a proper public consultation for everybody to have their say properly. So yeah, so my recommendation is, I mean, if there's a proposer, I'm proposing this, if there's a seconder to repair, to ask Anglo-American, invite Anglo-American to do some more surveys in the new year after the winter period, and also carry out a public consultation.
I was going to wait a little bit to hear what the officer's response and the responses of my fellow councillors, but Councillor Trumper has actually put forward this proposal that members vote against the recommendations to decommission the lift and to re-invite Anglo-American to further investigation after the winter in the new year. And request a public consultation. And I'm very happy to second that proposal. So that now has the status of a formal proposal, which I would hope you'll allow chair members to vote on. I just wanted to pick up this question of the figures as to why it would be so expensive to keep the lift operational. I have had a look at the costings in detail, because that's usually where you can find what's actually going on. And in the detailed costings, which run between page 97 in the document and the and 102, where the final figure is, which was the figure before the inflation since SBC did this costing is added. The final figure, the subtotal, we'll look at the subtotal because I think that's the most indicative, is £3,291,832.99. And then there's added on to that preliminaries and fees, etc. But let's just stick with the 3.291 million. And I looked through all the numbers in the list, and it actually comes down to really one substantive number within that, which is 3 million on page 97, which is for the superstructure lift shaft. That's to commission specialist surveys and investigations to identify the cause and location of water ingress and provide detailed recommendations for waterproofing the lift shaft. Carry out specialist survey of the lift shaft in conjunction with the waterproofing survey and provide a detailed report of recommendations. The quotation sought to remedy the ingress of water, and apparently this company called Vulcalizer have estimated costs depending on the chosen solution, but would require an in-depth feasibility study before accurate costings could be compiled. And the figure they put on that work, without any further explanation of what that might involve, is £3 million. That looks to me like a number picked out of the air, frankly. I mean, Councillor Trumper has said that he felt that the number had been produced by Scarborough Borough Council. Well, there is some support for it. It's in this document, and it comes from the costing of the superstructure lift shaft. But £3 million is an awful lot of money. And when you take that figure out of the costings, all that you're left with is the 291,000, which is quite a very different sum from the 3,291,000. And I think the office should really explain why they can rely on that figure, which was quite some considerable time ago, and without any further information. I mean, we all know that Whitby is built on boulder clay. My house is built on boulder clay, and when I first bought it, it was incredibly damp. I had to replace all the basement joists and floorboards and so on, because over time it had got damp. But it was possible to do work which was within my pocket to carry out the works that was necessary to dry the house out and prevent moisture accumulating coming from the boulder clay underneath. And I can't believe that £3 million is a sum that's necessary in order to deal with the amount of damp coming out of the boulder clay. I'd like to know much more specifically what that would involve, because £3 million is a tremendously large sum of money. So I support Councillor Trumper's proposal. I would hope that we can vote on it, but I would certainly like the people of Whitby to know exactly how this figure has been arrived at and why such a compelling figure as 5 million is put forward to counterpose to the obviously much cheaper options which involve the cliff lift not being used in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Swanwick. I'm now going to call on Councillor Broadbent.
Thank you, Chair. Many years ago, and I'm going back to, I think, around about it must be 93, we lost our funicular on the North Bay. Everybody was up in arms, and to me it was a tragedy at the time, because all that we have there now is a grass bank. So my heart goes out to the residents of Whitby and even sort of North Yorkshire. But once you lose an attraction, and it's not just, it was a funicular that everybody loved, everybody used, and it was part of Scarborough, and therefore I can totally understand Councillors Trumper and the 5,000 people who signed that petition. I would hate for them to lose it and make the same mistake that was made in 1993, only to, I think it was poached to some holiday resort down south. I'm not certain where it went, I forget now. But I just hope, what happened to us doesn't happen to Whitby. And I do support it, Councillor Trumper. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Trumper, for the petition. Scarborough Borough Council's survey in 2020 and Aligned in 25 suggested extensive water ingress. Anglo-American's advice in August this year found the shaft relatively dry, with no urgent need for expensive backwall grouting. And that's a direct contradiction. And crucially, Anglo-American recommended cheaper interventions like replacing grout plugs and improving ventilation. So we must not rush to infill and write off the lift without first conducting year-round monitoring and seeking a definitive picture. I think this decision is more than cost lines on a spreadsheet. It's about what kind of council we want to be. Do we protect Whitby's heritage, support its tourism and ensure inclusivity for all? Or do we take the easy short-term option, demolish and regret it later, as Councillor Broadbent's just alluded to? Places like Scarborough and Whitby have been told for years to make do with less, to accept cuts as if they were inevitable. But this isn't just about money. It is about priorities, and I would urge this committee to recommend to the executive that the cliff lift should not be decommissioned and that further monitoring and external funding opportunities must be fully explored before we even consider such an irreversible loss. Thank you.
Councillor Seston.
Attached in Appendix E of the report is the equalities impact and assessment. From the report, it says there is no potential for adverse impacts in equalities based on disability, age, or pregnancy. Based on what Councillor Turner's referenced about people not being able to access certain parts of the cliff, would that still be the case? I'm under the impression that this assessment is based on the bus service operating and running, and not necessarily the complete closure and cessation of the bus service.
Have we any more questions before Councillor Pearson?
Thank you. I would just like to go to the fact, well, I'm in favour of trying to keep this lift in any form we can. We must keep it. It was built in, 1931? And I first used it with my grandfather in 1959. And I've used it for many years since. I worked for the Spastic Society, now called Scope, and we used to take people to Whitby from Middlesbrough, and we used to go down that lift. Without that lift, they could not get onto the beach. And because it was just impossible to go around with the vehicles that they had. We used to drop them off at the thing in their wheelchairs and whatever other forms, and we used to take them down there. We will not be able to do that if this lift is decommissioned completely. It must be brought back to its present day thing completely. I always remember, though, when I used to go down there, it used to be always wet down there. It was always wet. Going back into the 50s, it was wet. What's the why is it suddenly a real massive problem? This dampness within the shaft. Yep.
Councillor Jefferson.
Chairman, I also will support the fact of well, as I should say initially, deferring it because the water ingress seems to be the main issue. And yet this year, of course, we haven't had so much rain, so it's been dry. So there must be something we can do to prevent this. The water ingress is obviously the rain coming in. And I think we should be very grateful, or we should be grateful to Anglo-American for doing this and to ask them to do a further one. I would hate to see this shaft filled in. You don't want to, something like that. Whitby is a jewel in itself. We all know how many people visit Whitby. I mean, I go probably once a week, once a fortnight. It's a unique place, and it's all part of the uniqueness of Whitby. And it's not a vernacular railway lift. It's a lift shaft that goes down. So I can't envisage why 3 million is a figure. If you consider you putting a lift in a new building, does it cost 3 million to put a lift in a new building? It's not the same as a vernacular one. It's going straight down, isn't it? So the mechanics are, and I just don't want to see it filled in. I think we've got to investigate every possibility we can before this actually happens. I was astounded at the cost of the buses. I was absolutely amazed when anybody can go anywhere now for £3. It was an exorbitant sum to go down the lift, I thought, in replacement of the lift. So I think we should think about it. I mean, as you probably all know, and it's a few years ago now, I fought and did a petition to save the futurist. That took a lot of doing. And my petition had to be people who lived, worked or studied in the borough. So Whitby and Filey were included in that, and a lot of people supported it from Whitby. I was astounded last week when one of the people who actually, how can we say, I don't mean it was a councillor, it was a different person who said it was at the end of the futurist life, we should get rid of it. He said to me in the street, we shouldn't have got rid of the futurists. I thought, well, do I slap you or, after what you said? Because it's now too late, because it's gone. And I don't want that to happen to you in Whitby. I think we really all should be together on this and just try and protect our heritage. Heritage is important, and it is why people come to our towns. Thank you.
Councillor Sharma.
I'm really taken aback by what Councillor Jefferson has said in a positive way. It doesn't cost you £3 million to put a lift in a building, so why would it cost you that kind of money to do it? It is a straight down thing. So I think there is room to actually consider what we're doing and why we're doing it. The other thing that strikes me is, as has been pointed out before, those cliffs are very, very steep. If you wanted to expand the size of Whitby, which I think was what was attempted, you have to have some way of accessing the beach from that side. In effect, if we decide to withdraw that lift, what we're saying is we are going to withdraw support from that part of Whitby, and we're willing to accept a contraction of Whitby taking place. Now, other people have pointed out the sheer numbers of people that come to Whitby on a regular basis, how attractive it is. If you reduce the area in which they can actively participate in, you're putting extreme congestion in an ever smaller area, and that's going to have a negative impact. So I do want to make sure that what happened to Scarborough doesn't happen there, because we had 2 or 3 decades of a slow decline. peripheral items were shut down, and then it was a long time before any attempt was made. With this specific lift, if you get rid of it, access to the beach from that side of Whitby becomes impossible because of the sheer size of the cliffs. And perhaps I'm being a little bit selfish. I'm of that age whose knees start to go, and going down steep hills is just not really an option, and it will be increasingly so. And for that reason, and as has been pointed out earlier before, the demographics of our area are skewed towards the older individual. If we want them to come here, if we want them to participate, we've got to enable them to be able to do that. So I think we should explore all avenues to see whether it is at all feasible to.
That has led to it becoming so important gem in the British seaside town industry. I think much of that success is due to its heritage and its history. You look at the jet industry and the way that that has been built up in recent years. You've got Captain Cook, internationally, of course, known, and its wonderful abbey, all of which are key features of Whitby. I think when you look at the reports, and I can't find the exact page that it's on, but mention is made of the report that was made in the 1920s, when the idea of the lift was first envisaged. This country would have been absolutely on its financial needs, because we're just coming out of the First World War, and yet there were people in the town then who had the confidence in Whitby and its future. Mention is also made in part of this report about having the lift listed. There's no mention at all of English heritage, but I would strongly urge that English heritage become involved in this for their professional advice, and probably pointing us in the direction of other granting opportunities. And it's not for the first time that Whitby has been suggested as seeking international status as a heritage site. And I think this is the kind of thing that would help achieve that. So I warmly and fully support the motion that's before us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, I'm going to exercise my right to speak now. Phil quite rightly says over 5,000 people signed the petition. That's over a third of the population of Whitby. I think the population of Whitby is about 14,000 now. So that is a sizable petition. It's touched every household. It's touched every household except mine, I've got to say, Phil, because I didn't sign it. But I didn't sign it because I didn't want to be seen as predetermined. It took 4 years to get the funding together to build that tunnel and that lift shaft. 1931 it was done, but for 4 years prior to that, there was a debate in the town. In 1960, I started using it, like Councillor Pearson. It was a regular for me. In 1965 and 1966, I was relief operator on the lift. So my history goes way back with it. And I can assure you that the tunnel was always damp. It came down the walls and went into the tunnel. And there was always moisture on the concrete floor of the tunnel. I have a disability. I have COPD and I have 2 knees that need replacing. I can't get down there. The only way I can get down there is to go down the ravine, park the car and walk along what is a level seawall. and I have to go back the same way. I can't go up by the spa. I can't go up the cliffs. It's absolutely impossible for me. So I have great sympathy with anyone with a disability. And the bus service did not provide for people with disabilities. There was no chance of that at all. Even yesterday, I was getting buttonholed by people in the town telling me how bad it was and how bad the bus service had been, because you never knew when it was coming. You could get stuck on the seawall waiting for the last bus and it never came. And these are things I've been told regularly. Happy to take the hint about English heritage. I think it's a good one. And happy personally to support the petition on the basis that we have inspections in January from Anglo-American. I have been through the report in detail. I spoke to Phil about it actually, because I've got so much yellow on it where I've made comments. But I said I wouldn't get involved in the debate today on the semantics of the report itself. I am going to support this myself. I think it's only right to do so. And I would ask that when it goes to Cabinet, a full EIA is produced, because I was very disturbed that we hadn't got one for this meeting, because it doesn't acknowledge there is a response. There is a problem for anyone with a disability. So I'm going to ask Phil to actually enunciate the wording of your proposal and formally ask Neil to second that.
One moment, I'll just get the proper words. Vote against the recommendation to decommission. To decommission the cliff lift, get that properly correct. To re-invite Anglo-American to carry out another investigation after the winter in the new year, and request a public consultation. I think that was correct, wasn't it, Neil?
Are you happy with that, Neil?
I'm happy with that and happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask the officer to make sure that the tunnel has clear access for that inspection to be done, because I'm aware how the chalets are put in there. Thank you. Okay, you've had the proposal as duly seconded. Can I have a show of hands? That's unanimous, is it? No? No. Okay, against? Abstentions? One abstention.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. I understand your position. I would have done the same thing when I was on executive. Thank you. Now, back to the petition. Phil, are you happy that that solves the?
I think obviously this probably will need to be revisited after depending on what the executive decide, I think.
But it'll have to be revisited, yeah, depending on what the executive decide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will be at the executive meeting asking for the same, arguing for the same recommendation to be carried.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to the next item, which is the playing pitch strategy. Thank you, Sandra.
Good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, my legs are a bit stuck together. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Obviously, we circulated the slide deck with the information on the playing pitch strategy and the built sports facility strategy. So you'll be pleased to know that I don't intend to go through every slide in detail, but it's obviously in the packs and can refer to it if there's any questions directly to that. So just want to stress that obviously both documents are really important for us in terms of an authority for many reasons, not just sort of like in getting an audit of what facilities we've got and what pitches are in North Yorkshire, but also sort of like what teams we've got, you know, what their aspirations are, but it'll also sort of like shape how we invest through either 106 or with strategic through external funding. So it's really important for us to collate it, doing it obviously with a lot of key partners in terms of public health, planning, parks, the national parks. But as you can probably appreciate, they are sort of like big documents just because of the size of the place. I've been involved previously with 2 playing pitch strategies in the previous Scarborough borough, but this is, I'll say it's a different animal just because of the size of it. You don't realise until you start like put out consultation that you realise how many pitches there are, how many clubs there are, how many people are involved in the delivery of volunteer grassroots sports in North Yorkshire. So I'm happy to take any questions. I think the first part of the presentation was just around the methodology that we use, which is a robust methodology that is Sport England's methodology. It's not open for anyone to do in a different way. You have to go through the process. The relevant governing bodies are all involved. Sport England are involved through the whole process in terms of they have to sign it off, they have to agree with what we've produced. But we are getting to the stage now where we've done sort of like the winter sports. We've started looking at the summer sports, even though summer is obviously coming to a conclusion, but the cricket, the rugby league aspects of it. So we're hoping to progress it on timescales, which we are currently with our consultant, Knight, Kavanagh and Page, who are like nationally renowned for producing playing pitch strategies. And obviously the size of this didn't faze them, which was really good, because it would have fazed a lot of people in terms of just the scale of it. But happy to take any questions, Chair, in terms of PPS or built sports facility content.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to ask you a question about the Scarborough District Minor Football League. As you know, that's now folded and we've lost a key part of local junior football. And that's not because of a lack of pitches, but it's actually a lack of support in running the league. As the playing pitch strategy feeds into the new local plan, what is the council doing to make sure grassroots sport isn't just about facilities, but also about keeping local leagues alive, especially for young people in coastal towns like Scarborough? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Moore. Obviously, this was an issue that was very close to me because I was actually on the committee of the Scarborough District Minor League, served as their league welfare officer for a number of years and obviously supported it through a work process as well. So it was a very difficult decision for that committee to take in terms of the league not being in existence anymore. But the whole thing around that was that the option to effectively become part of the York Junior League was the only option we had, because the league was quite strong in the younger age groups when, you know, people wanted to play under 7s, under 8s, 9s. But it was just as they got into the older age groups, we lost teams, and we all know about sort of like our isolation in terms of where we are and the link with other leagues and clubs. So it was a real difficult decision, but I mean, it was probably the best one that the league could have taken to sort of like ensure that junior football was still delivered in Scarborough. But so what we've done is we will obviously, when we've done the playing pitch strategy, and you're right, pitches are not the issue. It's sort of like the infrastructure around it, so the support mechanisms, the volunteer retainment. So we've had a conversation with the North Riding County Affair, and the actual funds from the Scarborough District Minor League have been allocated to the North Riding County Affair under their constitution. And we're trying to recruit actually a football development officer just for Scarborough, so to ensure that we have to be realistic. That person's probably not going to establish new leagues in the next 2 or 3 years, but they can at least start to build some connection between local teams, local schools, help with a bit of like the coach development aspect, so that volunteers are sort of like trained. But that's currently out for advert, and we'll do the recruitment as necessary. If we can't recruit within Scarborough, there might be an opportunity to join a role with York, so they work across both leagues. It supports the mechanics of that, but we're just trying to be proactive in supporting in the clubs, so that, to ensure they can still deliver. Appreciate that a lot of them have got the added sort of like impact of travel, which is always a huge issue, having to go to. But what we tried to do is make sure it was divisional. So it's the Scarborough teams tend to go to like the East York team, so that the impact's there. And I know you've still got the A64 to go down. But we are just trying to be proactive in supporting the clubs, but also working with the national governing body to ensure that leagues in Scarborough are supported and hopefully can develop in the future when we build more capacity within clubs.
Right. Has anyone else got a question? Bill?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Matt. Thank you for your support in Whitby around all the sporting facilities. It's just regarding the funding that's been allocated. Will the fund that give longevity to the leisure centre and the swimming pool in the town now for how many years will that be?
So obviously that element is, I think it's on the end of this slide deck, isn't it, about the leisure investment strategy, which was the announcement that was made last week around the potential allocation that has to go to over in scrutiny and then to executive. But Whitby Leisure Centre was identified as like a strategic site to develop the wellbeing hub model that we have. And with that, obviously, is the spokes as well. So we've identified some community facilities in Whitby that will create a spoke. So it's like Sport Mulgrave, Whitby School, those kinds of places where we know that there's a similar offer, and we can work more closely with them in delivering the health and wellbeing and the sport and active wellbeing offer. So yeah, the potential investment in Whitby is probably needed. It's been a facility, as you know, the dry side was early 70s, wasn't it? And sorry, the wet side was early 70s, dry side was early 2000s. So it's probably getting to that stage now where, like a lot of public leisure buildings, show a bit of sign of tiredness and want a bit of but I mean, that's really positive in terms of that announcement, because it obviously has impact on Scarborough Sportsfield as well, with the equipment side of it, which will all be refunded. So yeah, it's really positive that we've got that hopefully to take forwards, and it will. I mean, Whitby Leisure Centre is a great facility, and there's so much more we can do there, not just gym and swim, but the community clubs and everyone else that serves there.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thanks, Chair. Can I ask about the relationship that you have with schools as you go about developing this, going through this process? I'm particularly interested in the development of and the move of Scarborough School up next to on the old Raincliffe site, and how that affects the business of Robbie Hawks, who runs so many sporting activities up there. How are those conversations going, and can we encourage schools to make sure to be as generous as they possibly can in allowing their facilities to be used by wider members of the public?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So obviously all the schools in North Yorkshire received the consultation document. So whether they had playing pitches, whether they had sports halls, multi-use games areas, tennis courts, anything like that. And a lot of them did respond. Again, it's very indifferent. It depends where it lands, who responds, and everything else like that. But that is all taken into consideration. And I think in the analysis, there's some data on which schools are accessible. And it's around sort of like community use. That's what we're trying to promote with schools. But we appreciate with that comes some challenges for them, because they've got to staff it, manage it, and the resources in terms of finances, etc., is always there. But yeah, we're always trying to promote schools to be accessible, and there are some real good examples of that locally as well. Fully conscious of the situation with Robbie and Raincliffe School, and
what he's developed there on just like a 1-year rolling lease essentially, and also the plan for the new school. Not seen any new plans for the new development of the school, but I would imagine any new development with a trust usually comes with pitch facility, whether it's grass pitch or 3G pitch, that they would have to make accessible to the community. So I'm quite happy to have conversation with Robbie. I know Robbie quite well, so in terms of his business model and what he does in terms of community sport as well, and the teams that he provides. The other issue with that site is obviously the indoor space, which is a premium always, and the delivery of sort of like the local netball leagues and those kind of things that still need to be delivered somewhere, because we are really short on sort of like sports hall space, because traditionally it's the five-a-side footballers that take a lot of the space. So I'm quite happy to contact Robbie and just sort of like see where he is. I don't think I think Raincliffe might have inputted into the consultation, but I don't think Robbie as an individual or the club sent anything back. So, but I can certainly have a follow-up conversation with him about how we can assist.
Do you want to come back, John?
Just briefly, because those conversations are absolutely key to making sure, especially given the situation with Scarborough Athletic and the loss of the community use there. It's really good to hear the statement that David read out before the start of the meeting about the situation at the football ground. And when in that was this statement of that the timeline is still within the time frame. The pitch is due to be replaced by the start of the following season. Is it possible to quantify that even further?
Yeah, so even while I've just been sat over there, I've had a few conversations with people in property. So we had quite a productive meeting on Tuesday morning with Wilmot Dixon and other partners around sort of like, because the big thing that we're really sort of like pushing is the timescales that they're held to, and that we can get football, as was mentioned in Joe's statement, about getting football back on that pitch as soon as we can. Wilmot Dixon assured us on Tuesday that all they're waiting for is just some final soil sample results that will provide them with all the evidence they need to say what the work needs to be done on the pitch. From what the discussion we had on Tuesday is that the work seems to be similar to the report that Align did. So it's that layer that would be put in and things like that. But we understand that Wilmot Dixon probably had to do that work just to satisfy their own means and everything. So we've asked them that once they've got those soil samples, that they've promised us a timeline in a report by the end of October. So we'll be able to obviously update the football club that I'm in regular contact with, Scarborough Ladies, other users, to making sure that football is back on that site. But yeah, very conscious that because I think I know locally there's probably people don't see work on the pitch, which is natural, and it's really difficult to sort of like communicate any update if you don't have a positive update in terms of timeline. But we are really conscious that the timeline is hugely important for everyone, for community use, but the club in terms of their business plan, their financial plan, and the town as well in terms of having a facility that's accessible. So, but as soon as we've got those, we'll communicate them to the members.
So Wilmot Dixon, then all that side of it, that's all agreed. They're going to be doing the work, or they're going to be letting out the work or whatever.
Well, the discussion we had with them on Tuesday was that we were pushing for something official from them to say that they're going to do the work. But the sort of like the agreement that we've got with them at the moment is that they're going to conduct the work, and then as an authority we will do sort of like the 3G layer pitch, the carpet essentially.
Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. It's really encouraging to see sport getting some emphasis, and it's really encouraging to see Whitby getting a fair watch to get their facilities up to snuff. Now, I'm part of the Scarborough District Sports Council, along with a couple of my colleagues here, and we are really keen that local sportsmen, young girls, boys, teenagers, etc., are recognised for the effort and contribution that sport makes locally. So can I please put a plug out for our sports Personality of the Year Scarborough Awards. So can we have people talking to the local communities and asking them to put nominations forward, because I know that it'd be lovely to see them, because we put locality budget towards having a presentation evening for these people. So if you want to encourage sport even more in Scarborough and try and get those teams back up and running, then this is a really good conduit for it. So please plug it. Thank you.
Gladly will, somebody who's delivered the sports awards obviously for nearly 25 years, then I obviously know what a great event it is, and lots of members have supported it obviously in the past, and it is a great event to sort of recognise sport in our area and celebrate what people do, not just individuals but teams' achievements and everything. So certainly if you know anybody within your communities that are deserving, there's a whole host of categories, there's probably too many, but you can recognise anything from teachers to coaches to teams to inclusive activity. So please do make some nominations.
Thank you, Mark. Are there members, any other questions? No. Matt, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for the documentation to support it. And we look forward to hearing more in the future. Final item is the work strategy. Sorry, the work programme. Do you want to take us through it, St. John?
Please have access to it, because I've. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. So as you can see, the next meeting at the end of November is pretty full. But the following meeting, which we propose, which we're going to hold in Whitby, there's some scope there to adjust to the agenda to ensure that they're Whitby focused issues. But we still have several months to do that, I would suggest, through the through such things as the mid-cycle briefing. Okay, thank you.
Members, any other items they'd like to put forward? John.
Well, given that much of the discussion that we've had today has been centred around housing, and given that the question at the start of the meeting about unoccupied buildings in both Scarborough and Whitby, I wonder whether or not it's members. There are so many housing issues, aren't there, that are relevant to us all. Whether or not it's worth having some kind of update on these issues, David. I know because of my work as Vice Chairman of the Housing and Leisure Committee, that the council is working on things like the number of buildings that are not in use throughout North Yorkshire. It's taken a little longer than they thought it might do initially, but all those things are progressing. But there's so many issues around affordable houses, isn't it? Houses of multiple occupancy, and the issues that Rich raised earlier. And all those housing issues are equally as relevant in Whitby and the surrounding area. I just think it might be worth putting on our agenda for an update.
Happy with that. Okay. Well,
yeah, I think that's an important issue. I think probably, yeah, I mean, the housing issues are probably a bit different in Whitby to Scarborough, but even so, there's still important housing issues. I think in Whitby, I think, again, alluded to again today by Councillor Swanwick, it's the Airbnb situation and the amount of holiday lets, and again, it's new developments. When we're building new properties and new developments, those are being taken up by second homes and holiday lets, which is basically not improving the situation in the town. So I don't know if anything else could be introduced into that debate in the next meeting, whether there could be an update on that as well. I don't know.
You just have to walk around the Stakesby Road development to see all the key safes on the doors.
We've also got to think about, it's really good, I bring it up every time. In fact, when we were going to charge double rates for second homes, I said, well, the people with the holiday homes don't even pay rates. And many of them, I think 75% of them, don't even pay or contribute for their refuse to be removed, which really annoys me. They're not contributing to the local economy, which is a big thing. You know, it's hard to track these places down, but seeing rubbish put in bins every day by people staying in holiday lets, we're allowed to do it. We're residents, we're paying rates, but they're not paying rates. So we're subsidising them, and that's an important thing. But the other thing is the parking, of course, which will affect Whitby as it must just Scarborough, but that's hopefully going to be taken care of. But the Airbnbs cause havoc. You know, we've only got 630 spaces in the centre of Scarborough, and 30,000 tickets were given out. So how does 30,000 relate? And they bring 4 and 5 cars. So it's a big issue within both our towns. And I think we've got to look at it and help residents where we can.
Councillor Moore, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Just to make members aware that the bathing water summit that's been pushed back and back and back, that is to happen imminently next month, and it's expected that there will be the findings of the EA report, Professor Grock and all sorts coming to that. Now this is a summit, and the expectation from that will be that there will be a press release or a statement at the end of it. But I think it would be to the benefit of this committee to receive those from officers so that we can actually deliberate and look at the at that summit and what proposals are taking forward. Thank you.
Subash. Subash. Yes.
Just to follow on what Councillor Janet Jefferson mentioned about Airbnbs and disposing of litter, I was under the impression that if you were a business, you were legally obliged to have a contract for the disposal of your waste. Now, I'm assuming that the Airbnbs, most of them are businesses, they should have an equal contract with them. Are we not enforcing it? Is there not something which collects the information and says, oh, by the way, these people don't have a contract with anybody and they should have? Because even hairdressers and whatnot, one of the complaints I get is they're forced to have a contract, which they rarely use, but they're obliged to have it. Can we have some feedback on that, about how that system works?
One would assume that if they're rated commercially, then they are informed that they have to do that.
Does anybody check up whether they actually do it, or is it just you're informed?
I think cleansing do. Hmm? Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, we can ask Harry, but and my understanding is that they have to have a commercial arrangement. Okay. Live.
About the housing, if we're going to have a debate about housing and look at it, I was at a very good presentation a few days ago where they had it was Robin Hood's Bay there, the village of Robin Hood's Bay, talking about how it's interlinked. Without people coming in for these houses, the village would die financially, but because they have people coming in to be Airbnbs, there's not a local people living there, but they need one another. So that could be quite a good thing to put onto that, because there is an interlink.
Yeah, it's been a pet noir of mine for years. But as you know, I've waxed lyrical on the fact that there's only 30 permanent residents in the lower village. It stays out of 300 houses, and there's only, I think it's 12 permanently occupied in the lower village at Runswick. It's and what I'm actually seeing is in the villages, in the villages themselves, the demographic is getting older as well as people retire and move into the villages. And then we have the problem of what happens if they need care. And we also have the problem what happens to the villages, because it kills the local community in the end. Young people can't afford their houses. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, a debate for another day, I'm afraid. A debate for another day. Are you happy that you can look at that, and we'll have a chat with Liz at mid-cycle briefing. Okay. I have no other items for discussion. Okay. Meeting terminated. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. There are no sandwiches today.